This is the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show with Jake. The new way Wyoming wakes up.
It's time to take a look at what's happening around Wyoming for Thursday, March 27th. From the Cowboy State Daily Newsroom, I'm Wendy Kaur. Douglas Circuit Court Judge Clark Allen fought back tears when he accepted a prosecutor and defense attorney's plea agreement giving a 41-year-old woman 2 years of probation last week for stalking two teens. Evidence surfaced last year that Marcy Smith was behind a year-long effort to make then 15-year-old Jillian Holman look like a bully who was cruel and promiscuous. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports that the families of the teen and her now boyfriend say they understand why she only got probation, but wish jail time had been offered.
So if there's a claim like, oh, your warrant is overbroad, I can get a suppression on all the fruit of that warrant, and then your case is going to fall apart. Then the prosecutor and the victims have to look at that like, could that happen? And not only could that happen, but do we want to take the risk? Is it more fruitful for us to get those 2 years of no contact is allowed? Is that a better, safer bet for us? And in this case, with the family reluctantly on board, the prosecutor ultimately decided, yes, it's better to play it safe.
Besides the probation term, Allen ordered Smith to get mental health help, avoid alcohol and drugs, have no contact with the Sorensen and Holman families, and pay nearly $1,400 total in costs, fines, and fees. Ghost guns are a commonly used term for firearms that can be assembled at home from kits made by 3D printers or ordered online. In a 7-2 decision handed down Wednesday, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld Biden-era rules declaring that ghost guns should be treated like regular firearms, making purchases privy to background checks and requiring the guns to carry serial numbers. Some Wyoming gun rights activists blasted the ruling, telling Cowboy State Daily's Mark Hines that it will do nothing to keep guns away from criminals, but will restrict law-abiding citizens' Second Amendment rights.
They don't like it. They didn't like it when Biden was pushing it, and they don't like it now that the supposedly more conservative Supreme Court has upheld it, because they say, look, this is not going to do anything to keep people from still making weird guns at home. All it's going to do is make things more difficult for law-abiding gun owners.
According to data from the U.S. Department of Justice, there's been an increase in the number of ghost guns showing up at crime scenes. Well, for U.S. Senator Cynthia Lummis, the crux of the mistake that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth made in discussing sensitive attack plans in a chat that inadvertently included a magazine editor comes down to whether Hegseth knew the journalist was in the chat. Cowboy State Daily's Leah Wolfson reports that was Lummis's response when she was asked about the issue while talking to a group of reporters Wednesday morning in Washington, D.C.
She was asked again by another reporter who clarified that maybe the issue is just the fact that the information was being revealed on an unclassified platform was really the issue at hand, and then Cynthia responded, but did Hegseth know it?
The Atlantic originally didn't publish specific information about the attacks out of concern that they could be classified and have national security implications. The magazine later published them after the Trump administration insisted that the material was not classified and disputed the editor's characterization of the texts. I'll be back with more news right after this.
Are you fabulous at 55? Are you ready to use your valuable time and talent to give back? Join Serve Wyoming through the AmeriCorps Seniors Retired and Senior Volunteer Program, or RSVP, and make a positive impact on your community. With a lifetime of skills and experiences, you're exactly what your community needs. Whether you're itching to lend a hand or your organization could use some extra support, we've got you covered. Call Sarah Roberts at Serve Wyoming at 307-234-3428 or RSVP at servewyoming.org.
A pair of Wyoming ventures developing two different types of rare earth processing recently provided details about capital investment attached to each project. Cowboy State Daily's David Madison reports that the news arrived as part of a marketing wave pushed out by rare earth mining companies pitching themselves to investors.
There are international headlines right now about how China controls the rare earth minerals market. These are elements that have science fiction-like names, and they're necessary to create high-tech, from your cell phone to really sophisticated weapon systems. And so it's a matter of national security, says the Trump administration. And therefore, he's really lit a fire under this industry with a recent executive order. What that means for Wyoming is that there's a new infusion of cash to a couple of projects. Not only do they have rare earth deposits, so they have the minerals that the Trump administration has really put an urgent rush on.
The chairman and CEO of Ramaco Resources agreed that Wyoming is well positioned to serve the growing demand for rare earth minerals minerals, given that it has 2 processing facilities in the works. And that's today's news. Get your free digital subscription to Wyoming's only statewide newspaper by hitting the daily newsletter button on cowboystatedaily.com. I'm Wendy Core for Cowboy State Daily.
I'm Amy Grant, and I want to talk to you from my heart about the heart. There was nothing about my life that said, you have a ticking time bomb in your chest. But I did. I wound up in the office of a cardiologist because I was there with my husband. And at the tail end of that, the cardiologist looked at me and said, I want to see you. No one was more surprised than I was to learn I was living with a rare heart condition. He said, Amy, this condition, you'll be fine, and then catastrophic. A few months later, I had open heart surgery that saved my life. And I owe it to the research and life-saving medical breakthroughs developed by the American Heart Association. I'm grateful for the American Heart Association. Their research gave me more time to do the things I love with the people I love. So listen to your heart. I'm here today because I did. Learn more at helpheart.org.
All right, folks, we are back. I'm Shireen filling in for Jake, Cowboy State Daily Morning Show. We have Jen joining this morning. Jen, how are you? I have the audio all working. We're good.
Good. I was going to ask you. Yes.
I had some button not pushed right. You know how that goes. But
I do. It's better to mute me anyway.
No,
Okay.
not. I was actually really bummed because you had some great stuff and you're fantastic, and just appreciate your hard work again. I know I said that, people heard me, but I love your stories, and so glad to have you. Glad that people can hear you this morning. So how's your morning going?
Good so far. So good.
Bright and early.
How about yours?
Oh, good. I'm starting my day kind of funny. I have to tell you a story. So we're starting off the morning with a doozy. I get home yesterday and I have a young dog. He's a year old and he's my puppy. He's my dog. And we have another dog that's my fiance's dog. And I'm looking at my dog who went with my fiance to farm and get some of the farm ground we have ready. And I'm looking at him and his whole entire face is burnt, charred. And I'm like, what in the world? And so I asked Chad and he said, oh yeah, I accidentally lit your dog on fire. I was
My
like,
God,
are these grounds for me not marrying you?
I would think it might be. Is it okay?
Yeah, he's fine. I think I probably wouldn't tell the story if he wasn't fine, but no, it's just all of his whiskers on one side are gone, all of his
Yeah.
chin stubble, all of his eyebrows. I guess he wasn't paying attention and Eddie had his nose in something and they probably lit it on fire or something happened, I guess. He hasn't really told me exactly what happened, so I
Yeah.
guess it's...
I inadvertently.
What'd you say, Jen? Sorry, you froze up there for a second.
Oh, okay. I inadvertently caught my cat's face on fire once because she leaned over a candle and her just everything torched, and I'm trying to put her out. But yeah, she lost all her whiskers, so I get it. And they need those things.
They kind
They
of
deal
do.
with those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they do. And so you kind of understand that it was an accident and
It happens.
it does. And my other friend, one of my best friends, she did that to her dog, her little chihuahua, and it was a candle thing too. So it happens.
Yeah.
This wasn't a candle thing, but I just thought it was the craziest thing. I accidentally lit your dog on fire. I said, that's one I'll never forget.
That's got to come out at your wedding
Yes.
at some point.
Yes,
Got
yes.
to be part of the vow.
I kind of thought that, love is forgiving,
Yeah.
love is kind, love forgives others when they light your dog on fire.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, you've got to use this stuff to your advantage.
I agree, Jen. Well, you're not only a great writer for Cowboy State Daily, but you have a fantastic personality. I'm glad that folks get to know you guys more on this show and kind of can, get to know the folks behind the stories.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Jen, what are you working on? I know you've had a couple of big stories recently.
Yep, I'm still trying to track down how Breonna Mitchell died. And that's going to be I know that in the Gabby Petito case, when I spoke to Coroner Brent Blue, he was telling me it is so hard when you have skeletal remains because you're dealing with, you've got to bring in experts. So I haven't connected with the coroner yet, but that's on my list of things to do. And I'm also, I don't know if you know the Happy Face Killer. Are you familiar with that guy?
Right.
Yeah. So I'm working on a story. There's a new Netflix series, no, Paramount Plus series. And it's a dramatization based on his daughter's journals because the daughter and the father were quite close when he was, yeah, when he was
Oh,
arrested and
yeah.
admitted
Yeah.
to
I
these
have
killings.
seen
He was
this.
15.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of coverage on the TV, I think, a lot of previews. Okay, so there's a Wyoming connection, I assume.
There is a Wyoming connection, and it's slightly controversial. He at one point did say he killed his seventh victim outside of Cheyenne, and then he later recanted and said no, it was actually in Nebraska. Her body was found in a barrow ditch off I-90 in Nebraska, but apparently he did kill her at a rest stop right outside of Cheyenne.
Wow.
So depending on who you believe, and this guy is, in fiction terms, we say unreliable narrator, which is a polite term for just a so,
Right.
it's hard to know what he has told so many different stories so many different times. And I did interview one of the former Laramie County detectives who actually drove to Washington to interview him about the Wyoming murder. And he said what pretty much, I don't want to give my story away, but he said what pretty much everyone else has said is this guy is so proud of himself. He was, he was, I don't know how, I knew nothing about this story up until 2 weeks ago, but now I know a lot. But he wanted credit for these, and he was upset that he wasn't getting credit. So he would leave notes, kind of these cryptic notes on bathroom walls. He was a long haul trucker. So he was, would do that. And then when those didn't get picked up, he started directly writing to newspapers and investigators saying, yeah, here are the details. Here's what I've done. But of course, he didn't sign them. But it was his last murder of his girlfriend that actually got him caught finally after 5
Wow.
years.
That is crazy. I'm really into crime dramas. I get all
Mhm.
freaked out if I stay home alone or whatever. I'm like locking all the doors, checking all the windows. I mean,
Oh my
it
gosh.
just gets me every time. And this already has me, Jen. So I'll be looking for that story and looking to find out more because, like you, I've kind of known just because of it seems like in the last month I've seen the previews for the docu series you're talking about. So I had no idea that it even had a Wyoming connection, but that's why I need you, Jen. That's why you're here.
Yeah, this is my role. I will fulfill that role for you.
You are awesome. All right, Jen, what do you have planned for the rest of your day today?
I am also working. This is kind of a sad story, but a sad story where the family's using the tragedy to help others. But their 19-year-old, it's the 19-year-old nephew took his own life 2 weeks ago. And so it's one of those devastating things where it appears to be over a heartbreak with a girl. And so in question is doing a fundraiser benefit and really wants to do outreach and tell other teens, please do not make those decisions. I'm working on this morning and today, along with the happy face killer and the other stuff.
Well, your stuff definitely isn't sunshine and rainbows, Jen. So make sure you're taking care of yourself, okay? Because those are some deep, tough stories to be
Yeah.
covering. Wow. I don't know what to say, but I appreciate you writing that story about that loss and what folks can do to raise some awareness.
Yeah. And the bad. And I'm always amazed when families, and I see this a lot when they use their heartbreak and tragedy as a form of activism to help others, which is really remarkable.
It is. All right, Jen. Well, that does it for this morning. It was so great having you on. I'm gone tomorrow, but back next week. So I'll be chatting with you a couple of times, okay?
Awesome. I'll catch you Tuesday.
All
You
right.
have a good one.
You too. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
All right, great to get Jen on. She is she's so wonderful. She covers some really tough stories and she's always got a smile on her face and she's always got such a great disposition. Jen Coker with the Cowboy State Daily crew. It has been great getting to know some of the folks with the Cowboy State Daily crew. I hope you're appreciating it as I'm kind of getting to know the folks too. I thought it'd be a great idea. We have new viewers and new listeners all the time with Cowboy State Daily. And so with that in mind, those folks also get to know a little bit more about some of the reporters and writers, the folks behind the stories. And so we'll continue that. We have Greg coming on. He's been on, but we have tons of fun. So, I'll bring up something fun and exciting with Greg. But let's get to some weather with Dawn Day. I'll be traveling today and this weekend. And so some of this weather might be impacting me and maybe you as well.
Welcome to Thursday, March 27th, 2025. This Day with the Podcast brought to you by ConverseCountyTourism.com. Feel the energy of Converse County. Explore Douglas's railroad heritage, Ayers Natural Bridge, and the Jackalope legend. Glen Rock boasts scenic trails, dinosaur history, and small town charm. Plan your visit at ConverseCountyTourism.com. Well, I don't know how yesterday could have been really any better for late March for the region with those blue skies. As you can see there, a beautiful setting, classic spring in the Rockies. A lot of white up high and a deep blue sky in the background. And we'll see that for the most part today, but we will see a little bit of moisture trickling in that will lead to some cloud buildup. Later today, that will lead to a little bit of isolated shower and thunderstorm activity in some areas late today and again on Friday. It's going to be spotty, but you're going to see some very spring-like looking clouds in many areas later this afternoon towards evening. The system, the big storm off the west coast, is going to push inland, a big piece of it. In fact, there are two pieces. This pattern change is coming in two segments. The first segment is an area of rain and thunderstorm activity that moves across the region late Friday afternoon and overnight Friday and the Saturday morning. That's going to be mostly rain on the plains due to all these recent warm temperatures. Then the second system comes in, draws in some Canadian air, and that's the system that may have a little bit more snow with it as we get an upslope pattern. Livestock interest, be prepared for a shift back to cooler, wet conditions this weekend. And as we mentioned yesterday, need to keep an eye on next week's weather. Two large Pacific waves are likely going to come through the central and western United States for the first week of April. Speaking of spring-like clouds, a little bit of that moisture getting into central and southern Colorado yesterday. Got a little bit of some virga there. So that moisture that's in the southern plains kind of creeping up a little bit yesterday and will do so more today. Now, speaking of spring, you can see the snow line coming out of the foothills and going up higher. There's still always opportunities, and there certainly will be in April for more heavy snow in the high country, and we'll see that in some areas this weekend. But lower elevations, the higher mountains still packed in with a lot of snow, but the lower foothills beginning to melt out. And yes, I see green. There's a little bit of green out there, patches of green, and hopefully after this weekend there'll be more patches of green. The satellite and surface maps show, again, a fairly quiet day across the U.S., except in the Pacific Northwest. Showers and, yes, thunderstorms along the coast of Washington and Oregon late yesterday and overnight. And the main frontal boundary is now just pushing into the Pacific Northwest, but there's a lot of high pressure and a lot of nothing going on here. We have a disturbance down here in Mexico that's pulling in a lot of moisture and producing shower and thunderstorm activity across the south. Talk about a well-formed low. Well, that's textbook. Watch that system spin off the coast of Oregon there. Very mature, deep storm system, and it's a very large one. If you look at the scale of this storm, it's quite impressive in terms of the real estate it covers. And the impressive thing here in the satellite imagery is the cold, moist, unstable air that's associated with it. So a piece of this system is going to break off later today into tonight and tomorrow and head east. So this patch of clear that we have now, we'll see these high and mid-level clouds move in, especially tonight and during the day Friday. So what we're looking at, there's that little wave down in Mexico producing the showers and thunderstorms in Texas. Here's the big storm off the coast. Our high pressure ridge, the axis is now We're on the left side of the high pressure axis, which means that will start to allow some moisture moving in. This means the high pressure ridge has reached its peak strength throughout the course of the day today. By noontime Friday, here's the first wave. And as we've been explaining all week, it doesn't look terribly impressive. But this time of year, with the strong moist jet stream winds and the unstable air, moist air coming off the Pacific, that air mass gets pushed in. But it's not part of a real intense storm like what we saw for most of the month of March so far, where these storms come off the Pacific and then they become much stronger systems as they quickly move through. This one's a little more subtle, so we're not going to have much downslope component with it as the first wave comes on through. The precipitable water out ahead of the system is impressive. Now the green and the blue shows where the water content, the water vapor content of the air is above the 30-year average. It doesn't mean if you're under blue or green, you're necessarily are going to get rain today. What it's showing is we're moistening up the atmosphere. Obviously, if you're deeper blue or purple or green there, if conditions are right, you can convert that deeper water vapor content into some precipitation and clouds. And we'll see this here in a moment. But there is an increase in moisture happening today and tomorrow ahead of this low off the west coast. That's the point. That's why there's going to be some cloud buildup today and a few isolated showers and thunderstorms creeping up all the way, look at this, all along the front range here. This is associated with the trough coming in, and then more instability and even some strong thunderstorms out here in the Midwest as that moisture deepens there. By tomorrow, you can see the atmosphere becomes more unstable and gets further east for some generally just garden varieties, isolated showers and thunderstorms. And then Saturday, out into the plains could have some strong storms. The reason I wanted to show you this graphic is this large green area right here. This is just showing instability. And if you have instability, the atmosphere has an easier time to get lifted instead of sinking. And if you lift the air, you have that better chance of taking that moisture content and converting it into rain and clouds. By Saturday noon, the Friday wave is out into the plains, and here's the next piece, a bit of a stronger piece and digging a little bit further south. And that's going to initiate what we showed you yesterday. As some cold air gets pushed in behind this low in Hudson Bay here, there's a little push of cooler Canadian air. Not terribly cold, but it gets pushed in behind the first wave on Friday. That coalesces and concentrates overnight Friday and the Saturday morning the deeper moisture right along the Continental Divide and east of the divide. And notice we have a channel here where the high pressure up here and the clockwise rotation around that high and the low pressure system and the counterclockwise rotation around here starts to bring the air from the plains and pushes it westward. And there you can see, as we showed you yesterday, the high up here, the low down here. This is by Saturday evening and into overnight Saturday. This is not a terribly strong upslope pattern, but it's upslope nonetheless. Downsloping events have been occurring in March. That's why a lot of the forecasts, which had rain and snow, never really materialized much to anything because of the downsloping wind direction. This time around, we don't have that. So you can see by overnight Saturday into Sunday, there's a stacking of the deeper moisture right up against the Continental Divide. So if we look at the precipitation chances through tomorrow, this is through 6 p.m. Friday. We're going to see some showers up here into Canada, some pretty good snow up there actually, and maybe even a little bit of shower activity for Montana, North Dakota. Then there's the deeper moisture in the Northern California, the Pacific Northwest. This is the area of isolated showers and thunderstorms that'll be popping up later today and into tomorrow. This little patch comes in overnight tonight into Friday morning. If we then take the 72-hour period of the first wave Friday night, the second wave Saturday afternoon, and the Sunday, total precipitation looks like this. Notice the darker colors are along that channel I showed you, where the upslope is going to be most prevalent. So let's hope this comes together. We're actually getting some decent model agreement. This is the blend of the computer models, and there's good agreement of that same moisture channel, so to speak, in this area. So just keep your fingers crossed. A lot of the areas in the dark green and blue there really, really need the moisture. So we have everything we need. We just have to have it come to fruition. That's what the snowfall looks like. Most of the moisture that comes in overnight Friday into Saturday morning will be rain. But the second wave with the colder air during the day Saturday, overnight Saturday into Sunday morning, will drop snow levels down. So you can see that this is going to be a wet snow, but could see some pretty good snow in the Black Hills, up into the Bighorns, the Beartooths, the Wind Rivers, and into the mountains of Colorado and southern Wyoming. There's going to be some good moisture. The Northern Sierra doing very, very well as the Cascades picking up that Pacific moisture. So this basically gets us through Sunday and into Monday. Then here we go in the next week. Another wave comes in Tuesday into Wednesday. This will spread rain and snow back into the central and northern Rockies. By the weekend after this one, we still are seeing the potential for a closed low, slower moving low, near the Four Corners area late next week and by the weekend of the 5th and 6th. We'll see. But you can see that we continue to see waves coming, and we have the placement of the high in the Gulf of Alaska, which allows the door to open to this part of the world and allowing that weather off the Pacific and Canada to come on in. So the first week of April is going to be busy. Have yourself a good Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right, I'll have to ask Don when we get him on the show this morning about some travel. I'll be heading on the road here in a few hours, so I'll be asking him how I-80 is, which I think today will be a good day, but not this weekend. All right, let's get Greg Johnson joining the show for the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show. I'm Shireen filling in for Jake. Greg, good morning.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm all right.
Your morning not?
Not sure. I may have a problem with the newsletter, but I'm not sure about it.
Oh, okay. I love the
Did you
newsletter.
get it?
No, but I usually
You
do.
didn't get it?
I don't think so, but let me check. Might have went into my spam sometimes that I don't see anything. But I don't know if I should get it every day. People love that newsletter. Gotta make sure that's out.
Well, it's a big deal. If there's a problem with it, then that's what I gotta.
Yeah,
That's,
you
that's
better.
my priority.
Yeah, do you want to send it to me and see? Or is that not the
Well, I can't just
test it?
send it to you.
Yeah, dang it. Thing in my. Maybe I'm not subscribed like I thought I was. Greg, you want me to let you go and then you can figure that out and call me back?
Uh, think I think I'm all right.
Okay. It's always good, though. I appreciate the fact that you care and you want to make sure you focus on that instead of getting on the show with me, which is also very much appreciated. But I love that. All right, Greg. Well, we'll figure out if that newsletter is out there and find out or not. And if somebody's listening right now that got the newsletter, let Greg know, and then we know. It's
Oh, I thought we were off the air. I
Oh,
didn't know
okay.
we were on the air right now.
Greg, we're
Sorry
on.
about that. Yeah, a little behind the scenes there. Yes.
Yes.
Gonna make sure that the newsletter has gone out.
Yeah, well,
There.
I think that's appreciated. And you know what? One of the greatest things and ways to find out if something's not working is folks on social media. I had Jen on yesterday and the audio wasn't working. And if I didn't have folks that said, hey, the audio isn't working, I would have had no idea. It was fantastic. I was like, this is how things should work. And people should feel comfortable enough to say, hey, is this right or is this not right? Or hey, I'm not getting this. And I know that I appreciate that. So.
All right. Well, if someone's a subscriber
Yeah.
and they're watching this on on Facebook, comment whether you got it or not.
Yeah, talking about that.
You should have got it.
What time does that usually go out in the morning?
5:15.
Okay. So daily newsletter subscribers, if you got that, let us know in the comments. But if you
And
aren't,
I got it.
okay, maybe I.
So I mean, I gotta assume everybody got it. If I got it, I'm on the list.
Well, there you go. There you go. I think you're right. I think you're on to something here, Greg. Most folks probably got it. But hey, if you haven't subscribed to the newsletter, this is a great opportunity to do so. I know you can do that online. There's a number of ways that folks can do that, right, Greg?
Yeah, just yeah, on our homepage, big blue box, get free daily newsletter.
Yeah, and then I know they post some stuff on socials once in a while too. So if you catch that and you haven't subscribed, then make sure you do. I'm going to make sure I'm subscribed right now. Email. I was going to say my email out loud, although it's pretty well known. I think it's on my website, but I am making sure I'm in. Oh, look at that. It fills out everything for me. I want to receive morning newsletter or YO politics. I don't know on the politics side. I'll check both just to be safe. Great, cool. Yeah, make sure you subscribe to the daily newsletter. That's great. Right corner of the website, and then you'll be able to check your inbox, and there it is, confirm subscription. Yes, I want to subscribe. I also appreciate that you want people to confirm that they want to subscribe. I have subscribed to so many things, Greg, on my email that I don't want. Good times. Greg, what's going on in your world today?
Not much, just more news.
More news every day, you news nerd.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah, good stuff. Claire's follow up on the Glen Rock teen stalker kind of answered the question everybody had.
Yep.
Why did she just get probation? Why didn't she get jail?
Right.
Everybody was asking that after the first story, and so we found out.
Yeah, and we'll have Kathy Holman and Brandy Sorensen on the show here in about an hour and a half, and those are the parents of the kids that were involved in this story. And so I love that Cowboy State Daily has covered all of the basis on this, and the biggest question on why this lady and her sentence seem to many people to be more on the lighter side. But I think what with Kathy and Brandy, what we're going to focus on is some advocacy about situations like this. I don't think a lot of people thought this was an issue or thought that children needed to have advocates in this situation, but they clearly do. And also just about the process, it was really interesting to hear from Kathy about how her family and the young man's family knew nothing about the judicial system really, or the victim process or victim advocacy. And they were guided and helped out, I think, by some folks. So we won't hash, all of the details because Cowboy State Daily has done such a fantastic job. But I think we're going to focus more on kind of what they're planning to do now, how they're healing after this process, and just some interesting things that kind of happened during the judicial process itself.
Yeah, yeah. It's a lot of times the answer is this is what they can legally do, and sometimes it's not the judge's fault. It's what they're able to
Right.
give them.
Yeah,
Um,
Claire writes about that, so that's great.
yeah, just interesting. It's just an interesting thing, and it's man the someone could be that interested in the lives of some teenagers. It's crazy to me.
Well, I kind of half want to ask Kathy, although I don't want to ask her, but she is a public figure. She's Prairie Wife. People know her all over the place. She's beautiful. She's charismatic. She's everybody's friend. I'm wondering, Greg, if maybe this parent too was a little bit jealous of her, but I don't know if I want to ask her that, but she's just so
Could be.
great.
I thought I read something too where she wanted the girl's boyfriend to date her daughter.
Right.
Um, and that's kind of weird too.
Yeah, no, that's way bizarre, and that's I feel bad for all of the kids involved, including this lady's children, or child. I don't know, I just feel bad for all the.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in a small town, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
everybody knows.
Yes,
There's just no getting
there isn't.
around it.
And it's easy for folks to judge, Greg, in a small town. I live in a small town, and it's easy for people to pass judgment too as well. But it's also easy to find some great support. And I really hope that's what these kids and families are finding after this.
Totally.
Greg, I have a sports question for you.
Yeah.
Rocking my Steelers mug. Go Steelers. Um, Aaron Rodgers, you think he's gonna wind up with Pittsburgh or retire?
I don't know. I think he'll wind up. I don't know. I think if he winds up with Pittsburgh, it'll be a disaster for Pittsburgh. Um, I think he's done. He's not worth the drama and the trouble, and he hasn't performed to what his ego now says he used to, and that's why he got away with it. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Pittsburgh has any other choice than to try to get him at this point.
Well, I mean, Mason Rudolph isn't bad. He's taken us through some years before. So I wouldn't put him off completely, but it's been an interesting saga kind of for me to watch and the drama, like you said. And when Cam Hayward, and for those of you that don't know who that is, he's one of the most respected folks in the NFL, but he's a D tackle for my Pittsburgh Steelers. And he's, like I said, one of the most respected players in the NFL. And he said he wants nothing to do with Aaron Rodgers' drama. You either want to be a Pittsburgh Steeler or you don't. So I think with that being said, Aaron Rodgers probably would have to be, I don't want to say the, B word, but have to have some courage to be able to go onto that team when you kind of know Cam Hayward doesn't really like you that much.
Yeah, but I mean, he's got to see what his everything that he's got available. Um, but I don't know. I'm not a Rodgers fan. I'm a fan of he's a great player and he's a Hall of Famer. He not what he used to be, but yeah, just from a team standpoint, I don't know. And Mike Tomlin's not going to take any of his crap,
No.
and he's used to people taking that.
Yeah, I think so for sure. And the other thing
So
that's
it might be good to see it just from that perspective to to see them clash.
Yeah, I'd like to see Aaron Rodgers play for the Steelers. Oddly, even though I'm not, I mean, I'm a Aaron Rodgers fan, like you said. He's a Hall of Famer. He beat my Steelers in the Super Bowl when he played for the Packers, and so I always have a little bit of a slight there. But to have him back or have him on the team would be kind of interesting to me. I think mainly because I plan to go to a game this year. The Steelers and the Bills are supposed to play in Pittsburgh, and of course, I'm a diehard Steelers fan, but I'm also a huge Josh Allen fan. And so to see them play together, but to see Aaron Rodgers there as well, even if my team was stinky, even if it was crazy, I think it would just be cool to say that I saw Aaron Rodgers play for my team.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's a big deal now because they lost Justin Fields, and then they also now have lost
Wilson, yeah.
any shot at Russell Wilson, who signed with the Giants. And what's funny is, the Broncos are still paying him like $32 million dollars this year too. And the Giants play the Broncos this year. So basically the Broncos are going to be paying Russell Wilson to play them.
Yeah, that's what happened against the Steelers and the Broncos. I went there last year. It was the second game of the season, and Russell Wilson happened to be hurt. So everybody in the Broncos stadium was so bummed because they were planning on booing Russell Wilson when he was playing on the field, but he never got on he never played. So.
Sure. Well, I mean, they booed him plenty when he was playing for the Broncos too. So that was they had their chance.
Now, are you a Broncos fan since you lived in Colorado?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, grew up a Broncos fan.
Well,
yeah.
they've got some good stuff in the works.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's no longer. We no longer feel like Cleveland fans.
Hey,
we're
now
we're doing well. I tell you what, sports wise, if nobody has seen it, even if you're not a basketball fan, there's this highlight from Nikola Jokic last night with the Nuggets. Insane.
Really?
For a 7-footer, this insane no look pass. It's crazy. I mean, it's like Magic Johnson like.
Really? I need to go find that.
It's just nuts. It's all over the place. I woke up this morning and it's just everybody sharing it all over the place.
Well, I normally watch Sports Center in the morning, also the local news, but I'm up way too early now when I'm filling in for Jake doing a bunch of other things. So I haven't got my sports fix in the morning. So I appreciate that, Greg.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, man.
I'd like to see, I'm not a big major NBA fan. I do love sports in general, but I was able to see the Memphis Grizzlies and the Supersonics on their last year. They were in Memphis, but it was their last year being a team in Seattle. But I do have a dream. I would like to see Steph Curry play, and they do play the Nuggets from time to time. Sometimes it's in California, but if Steph comes to Denver, I want to go down and see a game.
Yeah, I don't blame you. That would be
That'd be cool.
that would be. It used to be the hardest ticket to get in any arena was when Michael Jordan was coming to town. And yeah, I would love to see Steph in person.
Yeah, how many he's got like 4,000. I can't remember what it was. Some crazy.
Some insane amount. Yeah, I think he just hit the 4,000 3-pointer.
Yeah, it was kind of like when Carmelo Anthony played in Denver. I wanted to go down and see him as well. Never made it, never got the chance. So I would like to make it happen with Steph Curry, just because it'd be one of those games like we talk about that you could say you saw him.
That's right.
Are you a hockey fan at all, or?
Somewhat. I used to be more of a hockey fan. I like it, but I don't really watch it that much anymore.
I'm going to check out the LA Kings and the Avs later tonight. I'll be hitting the road, heading to good old Denver, and one of my dearest friends is down there for some work, and I've got a doctor's thing tomorrow, so I thought I'd make it tonight, and go check out some hockey. They're both in the hunt, or maybe already locked up places in the playoffs. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think everybody gets playoffs in the NHL.
Everybody gets what?
It seems like everybody gets a playoff spot in the NHL.
Not my Pittsburgh Penguins. They are not in it. So.
Oh yeah,
they
used to
stink.
be really good.
Yeah.
Mario Lemieux, right?
Yeah, and well, we still have Sid the Kid, but just not great, So I won't be wearing my Penguins jersey later tonight. That's for sure. All right, Greg. Well, it's great chatting with you. You're wonderful as always. I'm gone tomorrow. John Beggs will be here, and then I'll be back next week. Sound good?
Yeah, it's all right with me.
All right. Have a good morning.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Go Steelers.
Okay.
All right. Had to throw a Go Steelers in there. Thanks for listening to the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show. I'm Shireen, filling in for Jake.
Wyoming is a big state. There's so much ground to cover, so many stories to tell. But the Cowboy State Daily News team is up to the challenge. I'm Wendy Core, host of Cowboy State Daily Video News. Whether it's politics in Cheyenne, energy issues in the Powder River Basin, or grizzlies in Yellowstone, our talented crew of experienced journalists are out there finding and telling the stories that matter. What's the best restaurant in DuBois? Renee Jean checks it out. What's the most recent Supreme Court decision mean to our everyday lives? Claire McFarland explains. How is the upcoming elk hunting season shaping up? Mark Hines lets us know. Every day, I talk to the reporters who are covering the topics, issues, and people that are important to Wyomingites, and in our daily newscast, I bring you those stories. Tune into the Cowboy State Daily Video Newscast every morning, only on CowboyStateDaily.com. This is the Cowboy State Daily Radio Network.
Gracie and Pedro might not get along so well.
You're standing on my tail.
But there's one thing they agree on. There's a right seat for everyone.
Oh, that's the good stuff.
Whether you're a dog,
Hold on, Pooch.
a cat, a fish, or a rat.
And I'm a ferret.
Be sure to travel safe.
How can you be so sure? I'm absolutely positive.
On your next adventure, make sure your children are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
So I wanted to talk with you and your mom today, Lily, because some people at school have noticed changes going on with you, and we're concerned.
Like what? Who?
Some of your friends, teachers. It sounds like you've lost interest in a lot of things lately. You're hanging with new friends.
So?
So individually, maybe those things are no big deal. But taken together, and then the incident the other day, you were with Derek when he was caught selling marijuana.
Yeah, he was selling it.
Honey, we know. But we care about you and want to know what's going on.
That's right. We just want to understand better and see how we might help. And if weed is a part of it, we just want to make sure you understand the negative consequences for someone your age, the physical and mental health effects, the poor decision making, and the confusing legal aspects these days. So what do you say? Can we talk?
For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Come on! Go, Diane! Yeah, keep it going! Yeah! Go, honey!
If you love them enough to drive an hour to cheer them on as they get beat 11-0 in the rain, then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
Throw that ball, Diane! Woo! You got this!
Glad to be here. Good morning. Shireen Herrera filling in for Jake on the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show. On the warmest day of the year for Wyoming, everybody should be at 70 or above. Don Day mentioned that there might be a couple of folks that are just right below 70, but everybody should be mid-70s. There are a couple people that might be dancing with 80 today. So we have that warmest day of 2025. I had to think for a second what year it was, but warmest day of the year. I'm excited. I'm hitting the road. And so I want to ask Don Day when he's on with us in about 30 minutes on if I-80 is okay and safe to take today. I love taking the route to get to I-80. I am terrified of being on I-80. As a matter of fact, I-80 is one of the most dangerous interstates. They name it often the most dangerous interstate, not the stretch in Wyoming, I think more east, but the stretch in Wyoming is dangerous as well, as we've seen in the news recently. And I had a friend that messaged me and she said, I would much prefer going I-80. She lives in Denver, by the way. I would much prefer going I-80 over I-25 because there's much less semi-traffic. And I said nobody who's from Wyoming ever. Nobody who actually lives in Wyoming ever says I-25 has more semi-truck traffic than I-80. I-80 is a cluster when it comes to semi-truck driving. As a matter of fact, my fiance drives truck just part-time for his farming business, and he will barely let me go on 80 on a day like today where it'll be in the mid-70s and sunny because the semi-traffic is dangerous. There's just something about that corridor and in I-80 in general across the country that just makes it really extremely dangerous. And so she said I-25 has way more semi-truck traffic than I-80. And I was like, that is not true. I'm like, I don't have the facts and I don't have the exact numbers, but nobody in Wyoming, I don't think, would ever say that I-25 has more semi-truck traffic than I-80. I'm always like, just clinching the wheel when I'm going on I-80 because there's just so much semi-truck traffic, and I think that's natural for a lot of us as we're passing folks. So I'll be asking him how I-80 is today because I would like to hit down Rollins from central Wyoming here. I'm just outside of Riverton, and then I love that 2-lane stretch. Love going through Jeffrey City, and then I have about an hour and 45 on I-80 that I have to make it through. And I don't like that, but then I can bop off to 287, go down Old Pumpkin Vine, and just cruise on down to Denver the back way there. Thanks for listening to the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show. I'm Shireen, filling in for Jake.
Want to stay in touch with what's happening around Wyoming? I'm Wendy Core, host of the Cowboy State Daily video newscast. From Mountain View to Upton, from Jackson to Cheyenne, our reporters are out there finding and telling the stories that matter. Every day, I talk to the talented journalists who are covering the topics, issues, and people that are important to Wyomingites. And in our daily newscast, I bring you their stories. Tune in to Cowboy State Daily video news every morning, only on CowboyStateDaily.com.
Wyoming is a big state, There are so many stories to tell, and here at Cowboy State Daily, we pride ourselves in bringing those stories to you every day. I'm Riley Strand, videographer and production assistant for Cowboy State Daily Video News. Every day, host Wendy Core and I talk to the experienced journalists who are covering the topics, issues, and people that are important to Wyomingites. And in our daily newscast, we bring you their stories. Tune in to Cowboy State Daily Video News every morning, only on cowboystatedaily.com.
You're listening to the Cowboy State Daily Radio Network.
In today's digital world, it's hard to know who to trust. Your local TV and radio stations bring you the facts. Misinformation and deep fakes flood social media, but broadcasters deliver verified and accurate news. For news, emergency updates, sports, and entertainment, turn to your local stations. Text TV to 52886 and urge Congress to support the vital local journalism broadcasters provide.
I don't think many kids in my son's school even do it.
He makes fun of his friend who vapes.
He would never try it.
She's into soccer. She's on the honor roll. She's just not the type.
No way.
No way. No way.
No way, my kid would never vape.
Get your head out of the cloud. Today, nearly 8,000 kids will start vaping, maybe even yours. Learn about the dangers at talkaboutvaping.org.
Breathe. Love what you do and you've already won, my parents used to say. My parents whose smiles were my first finish line, who championed respect, whose resilience built mine. Even more than I wanted a gold medal, I wanted a heart of gold, like the mentors who were my balance beams refusing to let me down, and the coaches who spoke out to anything out of bounds, heroes who never stood on podiums, but stood up for me. Every shot I made, give the assist to those who since my youth were referees, ready to blow the whistle and end abuse.
Hey folks, we are back this morning, Cowboy State Daily Morning Show. I'm Shireen, glad to be here filling in for Jake. This has been so much fun. I've learned so much with the Cowboy State Daily crew. Talking March Madness right now as we have the Sweet 16 that continues later tonight. I'm doing pretty good in my bracket challenge and my competition with my work here. And I'm tied for 5th, I think. The top scorer has 110 points. I have 98. Like I mentioned, March Madness continues with the Sweet 16. Yes, we are in the Sweet 16 later tonight. So just keep in mind that some establishments and places and folks won't be paying attention because March Madness will be on later tonight in the Sweet 16. We move on to the Elite 8 following, of course, the Sweet 16 games later tonight and tomorrow night for the Sweet 16. And it sounds like we'll be seeing BYU, Alabama, Maryland, Florida, Arizona, Duke, Arkansas, and Texas Tech later tonight. So the first game is just after 5 o'clock our time. I have Florida and Duke in the big dance. Florida is going to whoop Maryland today, no question. Maryland played CSU and almost lost, and CSU wasn't a high seed going into the tournament, and Maryland won on a buzzer beater by 1 point to advance into the Sweet 16. So I don't imagine that they'll have a big chance against Florida that's just playing some really great ball right now. So I'm looking at my bracket, what I'm looking at right now, because again, remember I talked about how much time is wasted during March Madness. They say something like $20 million is lost in productivity during March Madness. Of course, a lot of people kind of make time up and make work up around things that they enjoy. I know I do, but they say that a lot of folks waste time and work time, which I'm doing right now. I'm using my work time to actually check my bracket, but I can do that because we're here live on the Cowboy State Daily morning show. And I'm Shireen filling in for Jake. So, not your average morning show that you're used to, but just kind of keeping my eye on the bracket and March Madness with Sweet 16. Later tonight, I'll be looking to see who advances here um, into the Elite Eight and to see if I rise in my bracket challenge here. Are you doing a bracket for March Madness? A lot of times, I think the last few years for our bracket challenge, somebody has won it that has had no idea about basketball, about March Madness. And it really is just luck. You never know what the Cinderella stories will be. You never know what the upsets will be. And it's just fun to play the game when it comes to the bracket and March Madness. I don't know a ton about college basketball. I don't know a ton about basketball in general. As a matter of fact, I started my radio career working for an ESPN affiliate calling high school football. And it's a long story. It was up in Whitefish, Montana, and got a call for the Whitefish Bulldogs. And did the football season. I know a lot about football. I can do color on any game. I can talk about whatever. But they asked me if I wanted to come and do color and help the play-by-play for basketball. And I sat there, and it was so fast that I couldn't get a word in edgewise, and I didn't really know much to say. But it's a very fast-paced game, and I'm enjoying getting to know a little bit more about it through my years of being a sports fan. And I've been filling out a bracket for a long time when it comes to March Madness, but just didn't know a lot about basketball. So when I called, or the lack of calling that I did on the radio for that, I realized that basketball is not my game. Like, I am not good at, I'm not knowledgeable enough. I don't know what I'm talking about. I just remember it being so quick and those announcers having to just be on it all the time. Football gives you a little bit more room to breathe. Baseball, I've done a lot of PA and calls for baseball. Again, a lot more relaxed, kind of lets you breathe. You have time to think about what you're going to say next. I was just like a deer in the headlights when I was calling basketball for that ESPN station. So, needless to say, I did not become a basketball announcer. I ended up being a radio DJ instead. But as we continue March Madness, folks will enjoy, like I said, establishments. People like to go out and enjoy a little bit of that and have some fun when it comes to March Madness. And really, when you get to the big dance, I don't know if Florida and Duke will make it. But once you get to the big dance, I feel like a lot of folks just watch it just to see. People who didn't even fill out a bracket will watch the championship in March Madness. So that continues tonight. We have games tonight and tomorrow. I will not be here tomorrow. John Beggs will be here, who is a gentleman that has a story for everything, and he's really knowledgeable. He knows a lot about the outdoors in Wyoming and Colorado, and I really look forward to you getting to know him more as well. He'll have a Saturday show continuing with Cowboy State Daily, and so really need that weekend news and something that's live and something that's up to date and local and might be a little bit different than what you get maybe with Jake every morning or myself while I've filled in. We talk a lot about news. I talk a lot about goofy stuff. I also talk a lot about sports because that's something that I know and I love. But John will talk kind of about everything. He wants to hit high school sports. He wants to talk about concerts. I was just looking at Cheyenne Frontier Days. They had an issue a couple weeks ago with their ticket sales. When they started, they had a bot attack, an AI bot, kind of a cyber attack, slowed their ticket sales down just a little bit. But yeah, if you're looking at going to Cheyenne Frontier Days, you might want to look into getting those tickets. But John will talk about concerts. He'll talk about fun things happening over the weekend in Wyoming. He'll talk about outdoor conservation. We talked about high school sports when we had him on the show, and he just wants to make it a kind of a potpourri of everything fun and Wyoming, the Rocky Mountain region, Northwestern region. And I really look forward to having that for you folks on Saturdays now. So be looking for that with the Cowboy State Daily website on Facebook too. You can find more. I love the folks that comment on the Facebook page, comment on the videos too, and give as much encouragement as you can, because it's not easy getting on live. It's not easy doing a 4-hour show. I know I'm not used to talking that long, but I have had so much fun. And I think just having been able to get to know the Cowboy State Daily crew. I've worked in radio and media and news, and they are just fantastic. They really are a good group of people. We're live on this, and I ask them all kinds of oddball, random questions. We have fun, we laugh, we go off topic, and they just handle it and are just great people. So I, like many people in the state and around the country that consume Cowboy State Daily News, have had an opportunity to get to know folks just a little bit better that are behind the stories. And so I hope you've appreciated that. And I hope to continue that this morning as well. We have some fantastic guests. I'm Shireen, filling in for Jake on the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show.
It's time to take a look at what's happening around Wyoming for Thursday, March 27th. From the Cowboy State Daily Newsroom, I'm Wendy Kaur. Former Wyoming Game and Fish Department Chief Brian Nesvik was in front of a U.S. Senate committee Wednesday to be grilled on why he should lead the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Nesvik told the committee that his 30-year career with the Wyoming Game and Fish Department, ascending to director before his retirement last year, has given him the experience to balance state and federal environmental laws as well as competing stakeholder interests at local levels. Cowboy State Daily's Sean Berry reports that Nesvik's next challenge will be navigating those dynamics from the federal side.
He certainly knows federal laws. Environmental laws can get very complicated and tricky. He knows all of this stuff, but he's going to have to learn about parts of the country, I think specific regions of this country on the coast, for example, Texas. There's so much variety in terms of the biological diversity in this country. So he has a steep learning curve to take charge of this whole agency.
Nesvik's confirmation to the top Fish and Wildlife post is not in doubt, but first, the Environment and Public Works Committee will vote to send his nomination to the full Republican-controlled Senate. Well, after her boyfriend forced her to get into his minivan, a Fremont County woman jumped out of the moving vehicle and rolled into a ditch before being forced back into the vehicle and having to jump from it a second time. That's what court documents allege in the case against 70-year-old Jeffrey King, who was charged Monday with 1 count of felonious restraint, another of reckless endangering, and a third of domestic battery. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports that 42-year-old Sarah Evans was the alleged victim.
According to her interview at the time, he was beating her head and face and picking up tools and hitting her, and she jumped out of the moving van. And then she told the deputy, then he got out and started beating me outside. I got back in the van, and then I had to jump from it another time, at which point another man said he came and picked her up.
The Fremont County Attorney's Office filed the charges about 5 months after the alleged offense. Fremont County Attorney Patrick LeBrun confirmed that King is in custody and not on the run. Multiple large New York banks have recently announced plans for stable tokens for U.S. dollars to travel to and from the digital world, riding on the heels of a newly installed and crypto-friendly Trump administration. But Cowboy State Daily's Renee Jean reports that Wyoming-based Custodia Bank has beaten them all to the punch.
What they were trying to do is provide like an on-off ramp for money to go to and from a bank account onto like a cryptocurrency platform. So far, nobody has done that. It's been a regulatory obstacle course for Custodia Bank, which has been trying to do it since 2020. They partnered with a bank in Texas, which provided the master account. That's the account that you need with the Federal Reserve in order to access their services. It's a bank account for banks, basically. And so working with Vantage in Texas, they were able to do 8 transactions demonstrating this technology, taking money on and off the Ethereum blockchain.
Custodia Bank CEO Caitlin Long told Cowboy State Daily that she lamented that it was a Texas community bank and not a Wyoming community bank that approached them to do this first, but pointed out that this has been part of Custodia's business plan since 2020. I'll be back with more news right after this.
Are you fabulous at 55? Are you ready to use your valuable time and talent to give back? Join Serve Wyoming through the AmeriCorps Seniors Retired and Senior Volunteer Program, or RSVP, and make a positive impact on your community. With a lifetime of skills and experiences, you're exactly what your community needs. Whether you're itching to lend a hand or your organization could use some extra support, we've got you covered. Call Sarah Roberts at Serve Wyoming at 307-234-3428 or RSVP at servewyoming.org.
Texas researchers have concluded that Yellowstone's bison herds, which fluctuate between 4,000 and 6,000 animals, have merged into a single breeding population. That doesn't mean the Yellowstone bison are in imminent danger of becoming inbred, but Cowboy State Daily's Mark Hines reports that the herd's genetics could eventually suffer if current trends continue.
They've long been thought of as two separate herds, like the Northern Park herd and the Central Park herd. This research paper argues that, especially in terms of genetic exchange and breeding, it's essentially just one big herd. And that has some interesting implications, not only in the management and conservation of the bison, but also raising the concern of genetic diversity.
Bison conservation advocates worry that current trends and management practices, which include hunting and rounding up and slaughtering bison as they leave the park, could eventually ruin the Yellowstone bison's genetics. And that's today's news. Get your free digital subscription to Wyoming's only statewide newspaper by hitting the daily newsletter button on cowboystatedaily.com. I'm Wendy Core for Cowboy State Daily.
I'm Amy Grant, and I want to talk to you from my heart about the heart. There was nothing about my life that said, you have a ticking time bomb in your chest. But I did. I wound up in the office of a cardiologist because I was there with my husband. And at the tail end of that, the cardiologist looked at me and said, I want to see you. No one was more surprised than I was to learn I was living with a rare heart condition. He said, Amy, this condition, you'll be fine, and then catastrophic. A few months later, I had open heart surgery that saved my life. And I owe it to the research and life-saving medical breakthroughs developed by the American Heart Association. I'm grateful for the American Heart Association. Their research gave me more time to do the things I love with the people I love. So listen to your heart. I'm here today because I did. Learn more at helpheart.org.
Welcome back to the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show. I'm Shireen filling in for Jake. Glad to be here. Glad to have you with us. And thanks for being a part of the Cowboy State Daily Morning crew. We've got some great guests. I'm really excited. We'll have Don Day on. I want to ask him how he thinks I-80 is shaping up today, because I'm always scared to go on I-80, even on the warmest day of the year, which is what we have today, folks. For Wyoming and many areas around us, talking about, I think, my friends in Colorado, although they've had some warm days down there. But for us, central Wyoming, I'm here outside of Riverton. Shout out to my Riverton crew, Lander, DuBois, Shoshone, Fort Washakie, South Pass, all my crew here in Fremont County. But we'll be 75, maybe even a skosh, I say, I love that word, higher than that. And so warmest day of the year. We had some wind that we had to deal with. We had a couple of 75 mile per hour gusts not too far from my place on Monday, and it was consistently 50 mile per hour winds. And so today is just one of those days that I'll appreciate. You know, that wind makes me thankful for a day like today. Mid-70s, clear skies and sunshine is what we have forecasted. And it looks like that'll be the case for much of the state. Don Day, of course, has his forecast. We just had that on where he really goes into depth. I had no idea I could learn so much about weather every single morning. I'm always thinking, I'm going to just hear the same stuff sometimes because it's weather and it's every day that Don does this. But no, it's not the case every single time. I learn something new from Don Day, and so glad to have his forecast and his long weather forecast too. He's got a phenomenal podcast. I love how active and up to date that guy is, and just good to hear from him. And I love to ask him all my personal questions, all my gardening stuff. Remember, if you've got questions for Don Day, we have him on the show live here. So you can always comment. You can always chime in. If you've got something you've been really wanting to ask him as far as maybe travel goes this weekend for spring break. I know folks that are leaving for spring break this weekend and folks that are coming back. And so for me, I've actually cut my weekend short. I was supposed to be down in Denver until Sunday, but I have opted with coming back on Saturday. Dawn mentioned yesterday, that would be a good idea. We're expected to still be in the 50s, but with some rain. And I'd much rather drive in the 50s with rain in Wyoming than I would in the 30s with snow, which is what will be impacting parts of Wyoming on Sunday. So Dawn, of course, will have more on that and even more up-to-date forecast tomorrow as we gear into the weekend. Thanks for being here with me. I'm Shireen, filling in for Jake on the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show. I've had a lot of fun. I've learned a lot. And of course, Cowboy State Daily, I didn't realize how busy they were until I got on the show here and chatted with all of the reporters and all the folks that do the stories and all the folks that do the behind the scenes and the IT. It's just a really great, it's a great group and they do such a phenomenal job. So shout out to them. I was reading a story that Sean Berry wrote about Wyoming Governor Mark Gordon joined the state's congressional delegation Wednesday in endorsing Wyoming native Brian Nesvik as the new director of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. I've known of Brian for, I guess, since I moved here, heavily involved in conservation. And I'm definitely a fan of this. I love to see Wyoming represented in the bigger picture anyways, but he did such a phenomenal job for Wyoming and for our National Guard, which many people forget that he was involved for so many years. And so to have him as the next director of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, I fully support and glad to see Governor Mark Gordon joining the delegation and endorsing him. So you can find out more on that story, cowboystatedaily.com. They've got some other great stories too that they've just pushed out. So they're consistently on the go, consistently pushing out news stories. So if you haven't subscribed or got that free daily newsletter, it's just go to cowboystatedaily.com. And then there we go. On the screen, it's right. It's left for me. But you're going to look up in the right corner on cowboystatedaily.com and you'll see get free daily newsletter. There's also an advertise button. So if you're interested in advertising on the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show, probably when Jake gets back, but you can do so there and reach out to the crew. They have a wonderful advertising department, and both of those buttons, again, top right corner of cowboystatedaily.com. Looking forward to a great, beautiful day today. The weekend shaking up to look a little different. Dawn Day will have more, and then things could be cool for the first start of April. I know there's a lot of track and some outdoor activities as far as school goes, and so I think that's kind of something folks in Wyoming are used to, though. When track starts up in soccer, it's like, is it going to be nice? Is it not going to be nice? Is it going to be nice? You just really never know. So we've been fortunate, I think, kind of having a mild winter and a mild progression into spring, but expecting some more spring-like conditions, and we need it. We need a wet spring for all of Wyoming, including that eastern portion. So I'll be keeping my eye on that because I'm really interested in a weather guy that I work with here in central Wyoming, Dave Lipson. He goes up every May to get the snow water equivalent in the mountains here, the Wind River Mountains. And I tell folks this all the time. We could have 300% snowpack, but if that snow is not holding any moisture, it is doing us no good. And so they go up and find out exactly how much moisture and how much water is in the snow that we have in the Wind River Mountains. And so I always look forward to following them on their journey. They do that in May. If I fill in for Jake again, I will bring that information. And if I don't, I'll probably send him some information because it's really fascinating. And then they kind of go through all the layers of the snow and show you, where you can see, the snowfall and how it progressed and, how much snow fell at this time and how much snow fell at this time by looking at the layers of the snow. Have I just nerded out on some weather? I think so. Weather's cool. I love it. And that, of course, is involved with weather, the snow water equivalent and the snow layers that are up in the mountains. So I'm sure Dawn would appreciate that. I've had a lot of fun filling in for Jake. I'm Shireen, the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show. I'll be back in just a moment.
From Yellowstone to Devil's Tower, the Bighorn Mountains to the Teton Range, Cheyenne to Sheridan, Rawlins to Ralston, Cowboy State Daily Morning Show covers the state like no other radio show or podcast. We love Lovell. We're eager to share the stories of Story Will Crow About Crowheart and Yodel Over Yoder. Whether you make your home in Sweetwater, Chugwater, Powder River, or Green River, the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show will make you feel right at home. Jeffrey City, Atlantic City, we see you. Little America, Big Piney, you're on our radar. Howdy, Wapiti, Meeteetse, Shoshone, Ten Sleep, good morning, welcome, Torrington, Riverton, Wheatland, Lusk, Lingle, Lander, Timber, Casey, Kerwin, Moorcroft, Mountain View, Moose, Fort Bridger, Fort Laramie, Fort Washington, Hannah, Hudson, Hewlett, Dayton, Daniel, and DuBois. We are east of Weston, west of Midwest, north of Newcastle, and south of Sundance. Border to border, we love Wyoming and every one of its communities, bar none.
This is the Cowboy State Daily Radio Network.
When you hear the words nonprofit organization, what comes to mind? Is it a place your dog called home before finding you? Is it an organization that supports accessibility? Is it a place that ensures your safety and that of those you love? That protects endangered wildlife and habitats or fights for our most basic needs? It's impossible to show all the ways nonprofit organizations make a difference in our world. One animal, one person, one cause at a time, but it's not impossible to be part of it. When you give what you have to a nonprofit organization that needs what you can give, you help promote, protect, and strengthen the reach of these incredible organizations. The Nonprofit Alliance is here, helping connect people like you to the nonprofits that enrich your life, your community, and the world we share. Reach out to a nonprofit organization that inspires you today to find how you can help make the world a better place.
The challenges our planet's animals are facing sometimes feel a bit heavy.
The animals haven't eaten in a day, 2 days, they haven't drank anything, they're cold, they're dehydrated.
As soon as we started our descent, everywhere I could see was mud. Just absolutely mud.
The country has been in prolonged drought for so long, it was like a tinderbox waiting to go up.
Okay, very heavy. Each of us wants to be part of the solution, and we can be. Remember that there's good happening right now. At home.
All right, we were able to get into your unit, and we have all 4 of your cats. So,
okay. And around the world. For any animal in any disaster. So let's focus on that, right? Be part of the solution, one rescue at a time. Search ifa.org/disaster ready.
Welcome back to the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show. I'm Shireen, filling in for Jake. Glad to be here on the warmest day of the year for Wyoming, as many folks will be in the mid-70s, upper 70s, dancing with 80 for some areas. And then we do have a few that might just be toeing the line there at 70. I had this map sent to me. I love all these goofy maps that they come out with all the data trends, the most popular sandwich in every state, the most popular movie, the most popular this, the most popular that. And you really find out that the way they get this information is from analytics, Google Trends, and other websites that track data. For this map, it is the most popular beer in each state. Yes, the map that shows the most popular beer in each state. Now, they didn't use beer sales or consumption metrics to find this out, mind you. They used Google Trend data and data from another website to be able to find out what beer Americans are drinking the most in each state. And by the looks of the map, this is completely false. Wyoming's most popular beer, I don't know anybody who even drinks that. And so it's the third most consumed beverage, I believe, in the world is beer. Beer is the third most consumed drink in the world, right after water and tea. I would have thought coffee would have been in there. But what do you think is the most popular beer for Wyoming? Now, again, mind you, they did not use any kind of sales or consumption data. They just used information from Google Trends and from another website. But the most popular beer in Wyoming, do you have any guesses? Well, for example, I will mention I said this to somebody and I said, What do you think the most popular beer in Wyoming is? They said Coors. I said no. They said Budweiser. I said no. They said Bud Light. I said no. They said Busch. I said no. They said Keystone. I said no. Most popular beer in Wyoming, according to this state, is Miller. I don't know anybody really that drinks Miller in Wyoming. As a matter of fact, 33 states had Miller as number one, only a couple with Bud Light. Three in the country, or well, I guess 8 in the country had Coors, but most of everybody had Miller as the most popular beer in the state. Now, keep in mind that they don't use any kind of actual sales or consumption metrics to be able to find that out. So there you go, and there you be. That's the fun fact to impress your friends with on the most popular beer in the state of Wyoming, although it might not be the most popular. All right, Don Day joining the show. Don, how are you?
I am pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's a great morning, the warmest day of the year, right? For Wyoming?
Yeah, for a lot of people. For some folks we saw that maybe yesterday, but certainly over the central and eastern counties of the state where the high pressure's overhead, could be another warm one. I don't know how he could beat yesterday. Man, that was just amazing.
Yeah, I think where I'm at, though, central Wyoming, we had a little bit of cloud coverage, but not much yesterday. But we're supposed to be just a few degrees warmer today. So
we'll take it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm heading down or hitting the road after 10 o'clock this morning. And I had a question for you. I-80 should be good today, right? Sunshine, beautiful.
Not a problem. Anytime Interstate 80 is dry in March, you've picked a good day to go.
I agree as well. So it's great to have Don joining. Don, I played your forecast. I told folks, I love your in-depth forecast. I learned some of the most incredible things. Like every morning, I'm like, I'm not going to learn something new. This has to have some of the same information as the day before, but somehow you manage to find new, interesting things to talk about for weather every single day.
That's what's great about the weather. It's so multifaceted. There's so many things that play a role in the weather. It's just fun. I really like being able to explain kind of how the sausage is made. Try to understand for folks to really see what it takes to put a weather forecast together, and also the hurdles we got to jump over. The things that people always wonders like, well, why are forecasts always wrong, or why do they go sideways sometimes? And that's kind of what I try to do is highlight and try to be honest with people. Sometimes I'll just say I don't know. And that's sometimes the best way to approach things, because weather forecasters are sometimes their own worst enemies. A lot of times we overcommit to something, especially when we get out into that extended long range forecast. So um,
Yeah, it's always difficult to predict the weather, and you can't make the weather up. So it is what it is, right, Don?
Well, yeah, it is. So the all we can do is kind of live with what we have, and then try to. It's kind of like being on a riverboat. You're going down the White Rapids. You got your paddles, you got your boats, and you can steer. You can navigate your way through that river. But a lot of times, there's just things that you have no control over. That's sometimes how I feel. Like you're whitewater rafting, and you hit occasionally a calm period, but then you hit the rapids again, and boy, it gets really tricky.
Well, you do such a phenomenal job, and you definitely are probably the most popular weather guy that I know, especially in this region. So you do such a fantastic job. It's not easy. I hope people give you the encouragement you deserve, because it's a nonstop. You're up late at night. I know this. You're up early in the morning. It's really impressive what you guys do.
Weather's 24/7,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's one thing when people ask me is they'll have a son or daughter interested in becoming a meteorologist, and they'll say, "Well, what's the number one drawback?" And I say, "It never takes a break. It never takes a holiday." When you have Christmas, when you have Thanksgiving, and especially when people are flying and traveling across the country, you've got somebody watching the weather for you 24/7, no matter where you are, whether you're on a road, whether you're in an airplane, on a boat. So that's the thing about meteorology is it never says, well, I'll just take the weekend off.
Nope, it sure doesn't. All right, Mr. Don Day, appreciate you. I'll be gone tomorrow, but John Beggs will be filling in. Do you know John?
I do not.
Okay,
But I'm gonna find out real soon, aren't I?
Yeah, he's an old radio guy, and he's been in the biz for a long time, so it should be good. But Don Day joining the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show. Don, we'll chat soon.
See you then. Have a good trip.
Bye-bye. All right, great to have Don on Cowboy State Daily Morning Show. I'm Shireen, filling in for Jake.
Wyoming is the cowboy state. From corner to corner, there are so many stories to be told, and more cowboys and cowgirls are turning to the Cowboy State Daily News team to keep them in touch with what's happening both locally and in other parts of Wyoming. I'm Riley Strand, videographer and production assistant for Cowboy State Daily Video News. We're proud to bring the most important stories to our viewers every day. The stories that start conversations, the stories that make us laugh, the stories that make us think. Our experienced journalists at Cowboy State Daily are crisscrossing the state every day, talking to those who know the news best. Every day, host Wendy Core and I talk to the reporters who are covering the topics, issues, and people that are important to Wyomingites. And in our daily newscast, we bring you those stories. Tune into the Cowboy State Daily video newscast every morning, only on cowboystatedaily.com.
You're listening to the Cowboy State Daily Radio Network.
Julie was always a voracious reader. She'd carry 2 novels on an airplane because she'd read one on a 3-4 hour ride. And at some point, I began to notice that she would read a page and couldn't remember what she had just read, and she'd have to go back and read it again.
I don't remember much these days after I read, but less does for me, and I love it.
Logan Wilson here at the M Building in Casper, Wyoming. They do more than just support businesses and private events. They support nonprofits by offering reduced rates to help the community thrive. The staff here at the M Building have been incredible in helping me organize a fantastic event. They are great partners for those who want to make a positive impact on the community. Come check out the M for your next event.
You talk to... In every family, small conversations can make a big impact. I grew up on tour with my parents. Kind of different, but we bonded over music just like other families do over sports, camping, or other interests. And we talked. Little everyday conversations from silly to serious that built a foundation over time. Honest conversations, like when my dad shared his experiences as an alcoholic.
Your honesty about that part of your life gave me a sense of integrity that I wanted to uphold in my own life. And I was so grateful that you and Mom had become these sober, stable people who were always there for me.
I wanted you to know from someone who's been in recovery more than 30 years now that hard work is what creates success, not alcohol or other drugs, whether it's music or anything else. I said it a lot, and I'm glad you took it to heart.
Talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
All right, Cowboy State Daily Morning Show. I'm Shireen filling in for Jake. Glad to be here on this fine, beautiful day. We have sunshine. It really just gets you excited about spring and summertime and all those activities. I'm pretty excited because we are going to be joined by a special guest here momentarily. And so I'll get him on. And I'm excited. Let's see. Oh, my goodness. Is that Nate Brown?
Good morning, Shireen. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. So glad you could join the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show. How's your morning going?
Great. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah.
Thrilled to be here. It's great to see you. You booted me out of the waiting room once. So thanks for letting me back in.
Well, yeah, you had to redeem yourself there. So Nate, it's a beautiful morning.
It is. It is. Yeah, I've been listening to Mr. Weatherman for many, many years in Wyoming. It's pretty cool to hear his morning weather report.
Yeah, it is. And he teaches me something.
Day.
Yeah, teaches me something new every day.
We take that for granted a lot, I think, having weather at our fingertips literally every moment of every day.
Yep, I agree with that
Pretty
100%.
cool.
Uh,
There's a lot of people that would have really, that would have.
so can I officially call you NRA Nate?
I suppose, yeah, or at least a friend of the NRA, or
Yeah, there you
yeah,
go. So
pretty thick.
for the folks that are just tuning in right now or listening, Nate Brown, has been in a few different fields and careers, from outfitting to ferrying, horseshoeing, to the oil business to conservation. Nate, kind of give the folks a little bit of a background on yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I'm a Wyoming native, born in Lander, mostly because my mom didn't like the doctor in Riverton at the time, I think. But anyway, I embrace it. It's pretty cool. Fremont County native. I've lived abroad. I've lived in another state. Worked in the oil and gas industry. Got my oil and gas industry start in Fremont County with my uncle with Brown Incorporated, Brown Tobacco, Brown Construction. The name has kind of changed over the years. My uncle Brad kicked me off in the oil field. I'm working at a pretty young age, and then I ended up basically finding my way into the outfitting business. Broke out with a guy named John Winter, who's two Ocean Pass outfitters. John's now one of our state legislators. Great guy. He taught me a lot about backcountry. Kind of forced me into the farrier world because working as a hunting guide for John Winter and for most of the other outfitters out there, learn how to shoe horses and pack shoes on for yourself, your own string, so that
Right.
bring a horse to you. But anyway, got to spend several years in the back of Wyoming, getting both fly fishermen and just people on trips in the summertime, kids and families taking, moving trips all through the Bridger Teton and other places in the winds and whatnot. But anyway, ended up having a great career doing that, and so getting out fall. Ran a camp on the thoroughfare for a while. Got to see some of the really cool off the beaten path places of Wyoming that very even today very few people come back to those areas. So pretty awesome opportunity that I've had as a young man in Wyoming. And so then ended up in North Dakota. Came back about 2.5 years ago. Worked for the Wildlife Fund, who's done amazing work across the state. Uh, Probably most known for highway crossing projects, one of which is actually fully funded and will happen right here in Fremont County soon. With exclusionary fencing and highway crossing, overpass, underpass, mule deer, and the pronghorn and the elk of our state. So anyway, I'm happy to be a part of the Friends of the NRA program now. I probably the oldest organization in the United States that deals with conservation. That's the conservation of our Second Amendment rights. The hunt and all those things can be directly attributed to the work that has done over the years. In 1991 and 92, they started the NRA program to directly support the NRA Foundation. And so far, we've raised $1.1 billion for shooting sports across the nation. And just last year alone, 600 events raised about $40 million last for shooting sports of all kinds and training across the nation. It's a pretty cool opportunity. I'm the Area 29 field representative, RA, who's Wyoming and South. Happy to be on the bandwagon with the NRA.
I love it. Well, Nate, we're going to take a quick break real quick. We got to get our rodeo report on, and then we're going to come back and talk about some volunteerism and some really great information from Nate Brown here momentarily with the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show.
It's the Rodeo Roadshow on the Western Ag Network. Hi, everybody. I'm Will Rasmussen. Today, a conversation with Caleb Bennett, a 10-time qualifier in the bareback riding to the National Finals Rodeo. We talk about his coming retirement and some of the things that went into his decision. Caleb Bennett On the Roadshow, stellar career. That's coming up. Stay close.
If you're looking for this country's best bulls, then head to Midland Bull Test in Columbus, Montana for the final sort bull sale, April 3rd and 4th. At Midland Bull Test, they do one thing, bulls. You'll find America's largest source of efficiency-tested bulls, representing the top 5% from over 102 nationwide consigners. On Thursday, Soler, Gilbey, Simmental, Limflex, South Devon, and Red Angus sale. And on Friday, Black Angus. Visit MidlandBullTest.com for performance data, sale catalogs, and to register to bid online.
Improve yield without an extra step with QuickShot, a quality fluency agent and full nutrient package in one ultimate planter box treatment. QuickShot provides all the benefits of a seed lubricant, but with a powerful jolt of nourishment. This improves uptake and vigor during emergence, leading to a stronger stand establishment and increased uniformity. Go with QuickShot to help your seed reach its full yield potential. Contact your local Helena representative or authorized dealer for more information about QuickShot. Always read and follow label instructions and check registration status before use.
Even in my position, Caleb, I mean, you Cowboys, you go to 4 or 5 a week, maybe, around the end of June through August. You can go to one every day,
Yeah.
I go to one a week, but that's the family thing is hard. If any accolades I get, I have to say, this is for my wife and my kids and my grandkids, because you miss dance recitals and birthday parties and t-ball games. That's really tough. So I appreciate the decision and commitment you're making right now.
Yeah, and it is tough, and that's one thing I think gets overlooked is the families we leave behind are probably stronger and tougher than what we are, because they're the ones that have to deal with us being gone all the time while we're going up and down the road enjoying what we love. But I couldn't have done what I did without the love and support of my wife and her family and my family and everyone else along the way. But at the end of the day, I wanted to start spending more time with her and being home more. And
he's still on the board of directors of the professional.
All right, we are back. Cowboy State Daily Morning Show. I'm Shireen, filling in for Jake. It's been great being here. A beautiful day. Should be in the mid-70s where I'm at. Could be the warmest day of the year for many folks across Wyoming. And Dawn said maybe yesterday could have challenged that for some. Nate Brown, friend of the NRA, is back with us on the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show. Nate, we were able to hear from you and get a little background info just a moment before, but now I want to talk a little bit more about volunteerism and getting folks out there helping out. You are one of those prime examples, Nate, of somebody that really has bridged gaps between many different entities and organizations and NGOs and really boots on the ground. How do we get more people like that?
I think the best way I can think of is to start with them young, and that's something that you and I have talked about a lot. The volunteerism is something that's fostered within. And, being willing to get your kids outdoors, get them out of bed, fight the fight. I mean, kids nowadays have so many activities they can be involved in that they can literally do something every day of the week, even including the week long. So you have to put the outdoors and conservation into that mix, and be able to actually say, hey, we're going to go do something for something else ourselves, and that's what really it boils down to. In my lifetime, I've had the benefit of having parents that got me out of bed when I was little, took me hunting, took me fishing, took me hiking, um, outside, do some chores, all of those things are great tools, but it fosters, a desire to get up and get moving, go do something with yourself and to do something for others. So I think that's the best way to start. And then, the only way to do that is to lead by example. And it doesn't have to be your kids. I don't have any children of my own, but, getting other kids outdoors and being involved with other kids, helping other friends out that have children, the same kind of thing. And looking for ways to be involved is the start, I think. And if you don't start with young, then they don't learn how to be a volunteer. They don't
Right.
Mm-hmm.
learn how to help, somebody else's problem. So I would encourage encourage everyone to look for an organization that resonates with them, whether it's the Dealey Fanatic Foundation, the Fund, the Wildlife Society. There's all sorts of outdoors related conservation movements and organizations in our state. The NRA, if Second Amendment rights and the ability to defend yourself, firearms is important to you. I'd love to have you learn more about the NRA and the Friends of the NRA. But find an organization that resonates with you, and then get involved. Be a boot on the ground person. It takes a lot of work to put the events on and do fence modification, fence pulls, all the things, clean up state parks, clean the trash. There's just so many ways that people can help out and be involved. So my take on it.
It's interesting to me, Nate, that I also don't have children, and it seems like many folks that I know that don't have children are always the ones that are beating the drum to get kids involved. I think that's great. I think parents might miss that sometimes because they're so heavily involved in all the activities their children are involved in. They can't really see the bigger picture. But I feel like folks like yourself and myself that don't have kids, we are able to look at it with a bigger picture and realize how important this is. My grandma raised me and told me when I was 12 and 13, I had to start volunteering because she told me that it was just the best thing to do for networking purposes, but also just to give back. And so I hope some folks that are listening do the same. Nate, with the NRA, they do a lot of stuff with kids at their banquets too.
Yeah, that's really the main focus of the Friends of the NRA. The Friends of the NRA is actually the 501c3 support group for the foundation, the NRA Foundation, which primary focus of the NRA Foundation is to fund local and national shooting sports programs that provide training, equipment, and safety gear for shooting sports all across the nation. So, again, it's like get involved, getting kids out there, showing them the value of marksmanship, learning how to shoot a gun, shoot it well. That translates very, very quickly into the conservation movement and the conservation world. If you're not proficient with your firearm, you shouldn't be in the field hunting. It's plain and simple. I mean, you shouldn't be out there shooting at a living animal if you can't shoot your firearm well. So the NRA provides a lot of opportunities for training all across the nation. It has for many, many years. So, kids need help getting outdoors and getting involved in shooting sports. That's a perfect way for them to do it, just to be involved. Friends of the NRA.
So are they going to be up at the new shooting complex in Wyoming quite a bit then, I imagine?
Oh yeah, yeah, and the NRA has several shooting complexes across the nation as well. The Whittington Center, they're heavily involved in all of the different shooting sports all across the state and across the nation as well. So yeah, there'll be a lot of involvement in the new shooting complex.
Can we talk about the difference between volunteerism and promotion? I think that's probably the best way I can explain it, but I think there's a lot of promotion in conservation. So I'm talking about folks that are going out, maybe showing that great harvest that they got, that big rack, maybe that big fish that they got, and they're getting lots of likes. They're excited, they're happy because they're popular. But that not isn't necessarily good for conservation.
That's right. I think you're touching on something that's pretty interesting and somewhat controversial, but I kind of equate it to the same idea that when Al Gore said, "Hey, everybody needs to be involved in the climate movement." Never mind that I have SUVs, carbon, and doing all this, but it's okay that I buy some trees and I do this carbon. I think the movement today is more what about me? Look at me. Look at all the stuff that I'm killing. Every year I kill all these animals and I do all these things. Self promotion is cool, but it's I'm not opposed to people making a business out of things, but does that do a lot for the actual conservation of the species? Probably not. It brings more people out into the field for the wrong reasons. One of the things that I love about my background in conservation and with wild is my family actually subsisted on wild game. So, in the early days of Wyoming, when my family lived in Lusk and Lance Creek and over in the eastern part of the state, they didn't have a lot of money. They were basically one generation below pioneers in the home. So wild game and wild game meat is the main protein source. So I think we've got used available food sources that are easy, grocery stores and free money and all these different ideas that coolest thing about living in Wyoming is the ability to walk the front door literally anywhere in our state and find protein. And protein security and food security really is at your fingertips in the state, and it doesn't have anything to do with grocery store gas. So, to protect, you need to being involved in getting out there, kind of carrying the torch forward into the future for people that care about shooting, fishing, all of those things, and want to have that available for everybody in the future.
Yep,
Pretty cool stuff.
yeah, I think that's exactly right. Nate, you're one of those people that I look towards. I'm really honored that the Friends of the NRA have chosen you to represent Wyoming for them. You are now officially dubbed NRA Nate. That'll be what you are in my phone. But I think if we don't have folks like you who are bridging those gaps, because you and I both agree that our private landowners and other folks are the key to some of the protection we have for this great state. So, Nate, it was wonderful having you on. Will you join me again if I fill in?
Yeah, absolutely. This is great. Thanks for the opportunity.
Well, Nate, we look forward to following you with the Friends of the NRA. If you attend a banquet here in Wyoming, please look for Nate Brown. You can't miss him. He's normally wearing a cowboy hat. He's about 6'5". So say hi to the tall cowboy for me.
Yeah, and I wanted to also say really quick too. I also am covering South Dakota, so I'm excited to be involved in a lot of the NRA events in South Dakota as well. So all over the state. Looking forward to meeting lots of new folks.
I had no idea about the South Dakota thing. I love the Black Hills. You will do a phenomenal job. They chose the right person.
Thank you.
All right, Nate.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you. Yep. We'll talk to you soon. All right. We had Nate Brown on, and that's fantastic. Love that. Friends of the NRA. And of course, Nate does a wonderful job. And I was able to spend some time with Nate as well as some other folks that he deals with and outfitters. And it's just been wonderful to be able to know the folks there and yeah, be able to just find out more about the Friends of the NRA. I'm Shireen filling in for Jake, Cowboy State Daily Morning Show. We've got some great guests coming up here in about 15 minutes. We'll have Kathy Holman and Brandy Sorensen on the show. But right now, I think Jackie Dorothy's joining us. Jackie, how are you? Are you there?
I am here.
Oh, awesome. How's your morning?
It's going by too fast, but I do have my coffee, so I'm happy.
Good for you, lady. Well, we talked a little bit about some of the history pieces you're working on and some stuff with Cowboy State Daily, but I want to know what Jackie Dorothy herself is doing this coming weekend. What do you got planned? Oh, track. Maybe track?
Yes, I do. I have the first meet, and then maybe get some skiing in before the snow all melts.
Well, we might get some new snow. I imagine some of the slopes might be a little soupy this week with this warm weather, but on Sunday you could get some fresh powder, actually.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. We go to Shell Canyon and Antelope Butte.
Oh, I love that. Okay, cool. Well, Jackie Dorothy, we talked a little bit about some of those pieces you are writing. How's it going?
It's been going fun as always, just kind of digging around, finding all those different stories. And I think that we'll have a fun weekend with them.
What's your podcast again, Jackie? I wrote it down.
Pioneers of Outlaw Country.
Yes, I encourage folks to check that out too as well. And then Jackie has a bunch of videos too on Cowboy State. It's kind of cool. People could read the story you write, but then also there's sometimes a little video with an explanation.
I love working in all the different mediums. And that's what I enjoy. I did get my start off at Wyoming PBS and NBC, so like returning to the roots.
You're used to being on TV then.
Yes.
Jackie, are you working on anything that we need to mention? Really, anything important that people can look forward to on cowboystatedaily.com?
Gosh, I never expect the looking forward to I don't usually reveal my secrets, but sure, let's do that today. So I'm working on a cannibal story, and I think I might be sympathetic to the cannibal a little bit. We'll see. See what the readers think. The historic one. Um, but see, I'm just like I said, I was in the mode of talking about what we did last weekend and all the great people that we highlighted and talked about.
Yeah,
So if you
you
pull up my stories, you can see who we were talking about and how fun it was.
Yeah, I'm also looking forward to the cannibal story, and I know that sounds weird to even say, and only I could say that to you, Jackie, here on the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show, that I'm looking forward to a cannibal story.
Yes, it should be a fun little story. It was fun that our editor threw at me, and I was like, "Okay, I caught it. Let's see what happens."
Well, you
And
are the perfect
it'll be
person to
fun.
write it. Yeah. You bring
Yeah.
it. You
Not I promise it won't be gruesome. It'll just kinda, like, make you think. And then you can see whose side are you on? Who do you believe?
I see. You kind of bring out this weird, morbid history person in me.
Well, the interesting thing about it is that he had support during his day where people were saying, "No, he was justified," and he had other people that, "Oh my gosh, he's a man-eater." They didn't call him a cannibal, they called him a man-eater. That's, what he was in prison and all his records
Well,
in the newspapers.
that's taking the Hall and Oates song to a literal level there, man eater.
Yeah.
Uh, have you I mean, did you think when you were writing this story, I don't know the story obviously, and we won't let too much out here on the interview, but did you or have you ever thought if you were in a situation where you were like lost in the woods or something that that might have to be an option?
You know, I've thought about it because I've heard stories of where parents were slicing off pieces of themselves and feeding them to their kids. And I'm looking at my son, I'm like, "I'm sorry, no, you may not drink my blood."
No. Yeah.
Adamant.
That's wild. I'm watching a TV show called Yellow Jackets, and that happens to them. It's a school is on a plane and it crashes, and then they're in the mountains, and they end up having to when people pass away, they end up having to do that basically. And so it made me kind of think about your story. And when you said feeling for the cannibal a little bit, I started to think about being in that situation.
Well, you look at the honor party and you hear the stories to eat. I
Yeah.
didn't realize that.
Yeah, me neither. And also, just I didn't realize there were. I mean, I guess here in Wyoming. So
Yeah, when they're just there in California, but they were passing through.
yeah. All right.
Now that's another really cool thing is we're digging into some archaeological history, so there's some cool discoveries we'll be sharing as well.
Awesome. Well, I always rely on you for all of that and more, Jackie. Thanks for joining the show this morning, Jackie Dorothy, Cowboy State Daily. Find her stories, cowboystatedaily.com. Check out her podcast. Jackie, I'm gone tomorrow, but I'll be back next week.
All right. Well, you have a great time and enjoy your weekend.
Thank
I
you.
hope
You
you do
too.
something fun.
Yeah, I hope you get to ski and the track goes well.
All right.
Bye
Sounds
bye.
good.
Thank
Bye.
you. All right, she's so much fun. Jackie Dorothy, Cowboy State Daily. Like we mentioned, check out her stories, but also stay involved with her. She does a lot of fun stuff. I actually went on a trek with Jackie where she hosted the 100th centennial of the Yellowstone Highway. I was with the Wind River Visitors Council, and it was just one of those. It's one of those treks that I had no idea would be so interesting. We started in the Shoshone jail and we went through the canyon, and Jackie was able to have us stop at places that had some significant stories with the making of the Wind River Canyon and the blasting and things that happened, and just some really cool information. And Renee Jean was on that with us as well. So I do kind of know a few of the Cowboy State Daily reporters, and it's good to be able to have some of that background with them. But they really are out at so many different events and treks and the research they have to put into it. Talking to Jen Coker this morning, some stories she's writing are really difficult stories that have to have some awareness around them. And she's the one that's writing them, and it's tough. It's not easy. And I think about some of the mental anguish that they have to go through when it comes to some of these stories. But it's good that they're writing them. They need to be written and raising awareness. And so Jackie was mentioning having to write about a cannibal story in Wyoming. And yeah, just really interested in that. I don't want to say I'm looking forward to seeing it, but I guess I kind of am. And cowboystatedaily.com. If you haven't subscribed to the newsletter, do so. You can also click on Jackie's name and you can find all the stories that she's written, which is a really nice way to categorize some of your favorite writers and some of your favorite stories. And each writer kind of has their own stick and their own genre that they write or their own category. And so if you love, conservation, Mark Hines might be the one for you to check out. If you like history, Jackie Dorothy. If you like true crime, Jen Coker. If you like everything that's has to do with legal information and some of those in-depth crime stories. Claire McFarland is your go-to. Andrew Rossi writes about everything Yellowstone National Park and the Cody area. So if there's an area or a certain type of news that you like, I urge you to go to cowboystatedaily.com and then find the reporter that you like, and then you can click on their name at the top of the story. And when you do so, it'll bring a whole archive of their stories. And so you can kind of, tailor your algorithm and your news to, which reporters might be reporting on the stuff that really speaks to you. I read this one, need a mansion, more than 50 Wyoming homes on the market for at least $10 million. I imagine that was David Madison, by the way. He's based out of an area that has a lot of really wealthy folks, so he's the perfect person to write this. But it sounds like he said there are more than 50 Wyoming homes on the market for at least $10 million. I imagine some of those are definitely in Jackson, but Sheridan has some. Oh, the Ferris Mansion in Rawlins. I didn't even know. I'm going through Rawlins here in a little bit after the show. In the heart of Rawlins, the Ferris Mansion stands as a testament to resilience and restoration. It was built in 1903. It's on the market for just around $10 million. The Bedford Castle, of course, that's in Bedford. A lot of people know about that. But I didn't see a ton of Jackson homes listed on this, but I have to imagine, said more than 50 Wyoming homes. Just listed off a few there for you. I have to imagine that a lot of them are in the Jackson Hole or Teton County area if they're around $10 million. Richest county in the country is in Wyoming. Isn't that so crazy? Every time I think about that, I'm like, wow, that is why I can never afford to go to Jackson Hole very often anyways. But it is fun that it's only a few hours away from me. I do enjoy doing some fun stuff. I went on a trek with Teton Science School. That was phenomenal, and they do a great job. And there's a couple other eco tour companies that I just adore in that area, and they have some really interesting information. So if you've ever thought about a interesting, unique kind of short vacation here in Wyoming, heading over to do a day trip. I didn't even stay the night in Jackson. I just went over, did the trek, and then took off on my next journey. So there's definitely some ways that you can make a day stop in the Jackson Hole or Teton area and not have to actually deal with the accommodations and the price that comes with that. Or you stay and just find a good deal. Every once in a while on the shoulder season, you'll find that. But yeah, I had a lot of fun doing that. There's so many great little quirky places to visit in Wyoming. So if you're looking to make some plans this spring and summer to do some interesting things, I know I'm making a little trip up to 10 Sleep. I wanted to get a little cabin up there. And so I think when we get through that rainy weather in April that I might do that. Is there a place in Wyoming that you've really wanted to visit and maybe go? Another place is I've always wanted to go and stay at the Saratoga Hot Springs because you can only use the hot springs if you stay. And sometimes that Hobo Hot Springs is not good. Although I heard they might be cleaning that up, although I haven't got confirmation on that. But if there is one spot in Wyoming or maybe around the area, Utah, Idaho, Montana, Colorado, Nebraska, one of the Dakotas that you've really wanted to see, make some plans. It's not too far away. These are easy trips that a lot of us in the area can make. And you'll make those memories and you won't regret it, because I think many of us here in the great state of Wyoming forget how amazing it is to live here and how amazing it is to be able to have the opportunity to do short day trips and find cool little towns like Ten Sleep and go stay up there, and finding a cabin or a little motel that has a cool bar and a restaurant. So the options are endless. You don't have to be going to Honolulu or Miami or all those things on spring break either. We have some great little easy trips right here in Wyoming. I'm Shireen filling in for Jake. It's the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show.
It's time to take a look at what's happening around Wyoming for Thursday, March 27th. From the Cowboy State Daily Newsroom, I'm Wendy Kaur. Former Wyoming Game and Fish Department Chief Brian Nesvik was in front of a U.S. Senate committee Wednesday to be grilled on why he should lead the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Nesvik told the committee that his 30-year career with the Wyoming Game and Fish Department, ascending to director before his retirement last year, has given him the experience to balance state and federal environmental laws as well as competing stakeholder interests at local levels. Cowboy State Daily's Sean Berry reports that Nesvik's next challenge will be navigating those dynamics from the federal side.
He certainly knows federal laws. Environmental laws can get very complicated and tricky. He knows all of this stuff, but he's going to have to learn about parts of the country, I think, specific regions of this country on the coast, for example, Texas. There's so much variety in terms of the biological diversity in this country. So he has a steep learning curve to take charge of this whole agency.
Nesvik's confirmation to the top Fish and Wildlife post is not in doubt, but first, the Environment and Public Works Committee will vote to send his nomination to the full Republican-controlled Senate. Well, after her boyfriend forced her to get into his minivan, a Fremont County woman jumped out of the moving vehicle and rolled into a ditch before being forced back into the vehicle and having to jump from it a second time. That's what court documents allege in the case against 70-year-old Jeffrey King, who was charged Monday with 1 count of felonious restraint, another of reckless endangering, and a third of domestic battery. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports that 42-year-old Sarah Evans was the alleged victim.
According to her interview at the time, he was beating her head and face and picking up tools and hitting her, and she jumped out of the moving van, and then she told the deputy. Then he got out and started beating me outside. I got back in the van, and then I had to jump from it another time, at which point another man said he came and picked her up.
The Fremont County Attorney's Office filed the charges about 5 months after the alleged offense. Fremont County Attorney Patrick LeBrun confirmed that King is in custody and not on the run. Multiple large New York banks have recently announced plans for stable tokens for U.S. dollars to travel to and from the digital world, riding on the heels of a newly installed and crypto-friendly Trump administration. But Cowboy State Daily's Renee Jean reports that Wyoming-based Custodia Bank has beaten them all to the punch.
What they were trying to do is provide like an on-off ramp for money to go to and from a bank account onto like a cryptocurrency platform. So far, nobody has done that. It's been a regulatory obstacle course for Custodia Bank, which has been trying to do it since 2020. They partnered with a bank in Texas, which provided the master account. That's the account that you need with the Federal Reserve in order to access their services. It's a bank account for banks, basically. And so working with Vantage in Texas, they were able to do 8 transactions demonstrating this technology, taking money on and off the Ethereum blockchain.
Custodia Bank CEO Caitlin Long told Cowboy State Daily that she lamented that it was a Texas community bank and not a Wyoming community bank that approached them to do this first, but pointed out that this has been part of Custodia's business plan since 2020. I'll be back with more news right after this.
Are you fabulous and 55? Are you ready to use your valuable time and talent to give back? Join Serve Wyoming through the AmeriCorps Seniors Retired and Senior Volunteer Program, or RSVP, and make a positive impact on your community. With a lifetime of skills and experiences, you're exactly what your community needs. Whether you're itching to lend a hand or your organization could use some extra support, we've got you covered. Call Sarah Roberts at Serve Wyoming at 307-234-3428 or RSVP at servewyoming.org.
Texas researchers have concluded that Yellowstone's bison herds, which fluctuate between 4,000 and 6,000 animals, have merged into a single breeding population. That doesn't mean the Yellowstone bison are in imminent danger of becoming inbred, but Cowboy State Daily's Mark Hines reports that the herd's genetics could eventually suffer if current trends continue.
They've long been thought of as two separate herds, like the Northern Park herd and the Central Park herd. This research paper argues that, especially in terms of genetic exchange and breeding, it's essentially just one big herd. And that has some interesting implications, not only in the management and conservation of the bison, but also raising the concern of genetic diversity.
Bison conservation advocates worry that current trends and management practices, which include hunting and rounding up and slaughtering bison as they leave the park, could eventually ruin the Yellowstone bison's genetics. And that's today's news. Get your free digital subscription to Wyoming's only statewide newspaper by hitting the daily newsletter button on cowboystatedaily.com. I'm Wendy Core for Cowboy State Daily.
For a Native American child living in poverty, opportunities are limited and filled with obstacles. Generational trauma, poverty, and a disconnect from their culture. These children are looking for a new direction, a chance at a better life for their families and communities. At St. Lebre Indian School, Native American children get that chance.
I like that they try to keep us safe. I do feel safe here. My favorite thing about Lebre is how they incorporate our cultural values into our everyday education.
St. Lebre is more than a school. Here, every child gets the education and tools to become the change makers of tomorrow.
Graduating from Lebre will allow me to attend bigger universities and colleges through their scholarship programs.
Learn more about how St. Lebre is helping lead our children to a future that is proud, prosperous, and free. Learn more at stlebre.org.
All right, folks, back in action. I'm Shireen filling in for Jake on the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show. I'm excited to have a couple of ladies joining this morning. Kathy, Brandy, how are you?
Doing good. Thank you so much for having us on.
Thank you so much.
Well, it's great to be able to chat with both of you. I wish it was on better circumstances. Kathy, I'm fangirling out a little bit, but just glad to be able to chat with you. You and I have known of each other for a while. We worked for the same company in radio. I've been following you, and yeah, I just can't believe that this is why we're talking this morning. But I think it's really important. So, first off, Kathy and Brandy, can you introduce yourselves real quick?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and go first. My name is Kathy Holman. A lot of people may know me as Prairie Wife from my online platform, prairiewifeinheels.com. And do you want us to go into why we're chatting today, or do you want us just to say who we are?
Yeah, just say who you are, and then we'll go
Okay.
into that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So Kathy Holman, Prairie Wife, Mama Five, City Girl, Gone Country. And I've been in Wyoming for working on almost 30 years now. So
And I'm Brandy Sorensen. I've only been here in Wyoming just over 5 years, and my husband's a Wyoming native, and then we ended up settling here.
Well, Kathy, I mentioned to you, I don't want to rehash all the drama and chaos, but the story that has been on cowboystatedaily.com, other news outlets as well, feature your children who have been the victims of impersonation, stalking, cyberbullying. And like I mentioned, I don't really want to hash through all of that again, but I think what we should do during this time is to talk about the process a little bit and how both of you managed to traverse that process. Kathy, you mentioned it was a little difficult, I'm sure, for both you and Brandy, not really knowing the judicial system or the victim advocacy of it.
yeah, for sure. So I joke that Brandy is my like courtroom genius, and um I I have mentioned multiple times that there's purpose in what's happened, and I know we'll maybe talk later about what we're going to do with what happened to our children, but I have no doubt that God put me with Brandy to hold my hand and walk me through the judicial process For me, someone that has never even had a parking ticket, I didn't know how to fill out a protection order. I had no idea, honestly, what one really was. And as far as the court process itself, I found it incredibly just overwhelming. Brandy would answer my questions, just the simple things like paperwork, like the paperwork to fill out, the paperwork that you need to have. Brandy, you can probably in here and kind of you knew how to do and how you held our hand, but that first step I think was that protection order.
Yeah, I came from a law enforcement family, so I knew that side of it. And then I call myself a YouTube law nerd. So I do have watched, you know, trials and stuff. So I knew some of the lingo and I knew that, but I've also never been through anything like this on this side. Um, so you go to the police and you expect like they'll just walk you through it. It doesn't work like that at all. We did talk to the police, and then later we realized, oh, we could have gone to a victim's advocate and they could have helped us through the process. Um, yeah, it's just confusing. The police do their investigation, but they don't tell you, okay, what happens next? Who chooses what charges? They don't tell you all that.
So Brandy mentioned victim advocates, and I think that's something that I really want to emphasize. We've had a lot of people since we've gone public, and Brandy and I have tried to make content and answer everyone's questions. But the victim advocate is literally, and Brandy, jump in if I have anything wrong, per usual. Um,
Fine.
the victim advocate, you literally just walk in their door and you say, the police told me I need a protection order for my kid. Help me. And you can be crying. In my case, you can have your dog with you because you just got done with a hike and you don't realize it's going to take 2 hours. So God bless the women in the office there for getting him water and not being upset when he spilled it everywhere. I will never not be embarrassed about that. But then they literally sit you down with the paperwork, walk you through everything. And then, Brandy, something that I appreciated too was they continue to follow up with you and say, this is what's happening in the court system now. So, for example, you fill out the protection order and then a judge has to sign it in order for it to be through. So you're sitting and you're waiting and you're wondering, are we going to be safe or not? So then the victim advocate calls and lets you know about that. And then, Brandy, what would you say is the next step that kind of we needed their help and their support with after the protection order? Maybe the hearing?
Yeah, the hearing, and also again, they do have resources like for mental health and for, and they'll check in how's it feeling now that we've gotten to this far, and so that is a big step in the process, not just the legal process, but they understand how victims, process, and they can get you some resources there, I think are huge.
How do people find victim advocates?
You Google it.
Okay.
Yeah, you can actually ask, and I know Kathy, she said the police told her to get a protection order.
Mhm.
That our as much as we're the same, our experience was totally different. My son wasn't seen as a victim at first, and that's a whole nother story. But and I had asked, like, what do I do? And they're like, the officer told me, that's a civil matter. No one told me to go to a victim's advocate. Kathy found out about it, and I knew about victims advocates, but I only thought that was for domestic violence. Like I didn't know.
Sure.
And now that's why we want to talk about it so much. So you can ask, you can Google it. There's usually one in every count, at least, one in every county in Wyoming. You can ask the prosecutor's office, but definitely knowing that that's available is a big deal.
Brandy, that was a really good point. So, for example, if you now have seen our case and you feel, oh my gosh, the same thing is happening to my family. I didn't know there was anything we could do about it. The police said no, this person said no. You don't need an appointment. I mean, it's great if you make one, but you literally can just walk in their office and say, help me. And I love, Brandy, too, that you emphasize the mental health aspect. They gave, because our kids' schedules are crazy, they're multi sport athletes, they're doing all the things. They gave me, we couldn't find a counselor that fit my daughter's schedule. She would have had to give up something that was important to her. And so they gave me resources for online therapy that could fit in, 9 o'clock at night, if that's what my kid needed, or 10 o'clock on Saturday. So, and something too, I want to say, we had someone mention online that there should be a gag order on this, that we shouldn't be talking about this because it's about minors. Every single thing that Brandy and I have posted or said has been with permission of both of our children. There's not a single thing, and even this interview, I asked my daughter, "Are
Good.
you okay with this?" So I just want to make that clear. We've told them if we do 300 interviews and you decide you're done, we're done. If you do 10 and you need to take a break, that goes.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that folks, kind of view it that way. For me personally, if there is any kid in need or a minor in trouble or a minor that's going through this, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to try to find out the information. And so I think a little differently than that person. But you guys have had hundreds and thousands of likes on social media or reactions. I shouldn't say likes, reactions and hundreds of comments. And the support seems like it really is pouring in, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say overwhelmingly there has been support for our children, there's been support for our family, and even more exciting, in my opinion, there's been support to change the legislation in Wyoming because the justice part is done. We're done. Our time on the criminal side, she got 2 years of probation. The stalker, whose name is Marcy Smith, she got 2 years of probation, no drugs, that's what it is. A large part of that has to do with our laws. It is not a felony for an adult to stalk a minor. So Brandy and I are working together to change that. And the overwhelming support from our state, I know for a fact, hundreds of emails have been sent to legislators across the state because they're calling me and telling me what can we do to help? Who do we talk to? So that's been really rewarding. And something Brandy and I were talking about as well, and Brandy, you can flesh this out because it's a little different for you. I'm used to, as a public person, people sharing their stories and the impact and their experiences, but hundreds of those comments are people sharing their same experiences. So Brandy, like, I kind of want to know what's that been like for you to have all these things coming out because we shared what we said.
In a way, it's overwhelming. I have always known because I've been this stuff exists and that people don't always get justice. I said from the beginning, like, just so you know, don't expect to feel better after we're done with this. Like, it just doesn't always happen and it sucks. But so that has helped. But just seeing the overwhelming, I mean, you feel for them. You're like, oh, I can't believe that happened. So it is overwhelming, but not in a bad way. I'm grateful that they trust us in that sharing, and I'm grateful that they um, can feel safe to share their stories as well as we can share those stories. Not everybody has a platform. Not everybody has a way to or the strength to go and speak about your experiences afterwards. And so the fact that Kathy already did, and she's great at it and she's comfortable with it and her kids understand and I'm right along with her, but I didn't have all of that. Not every victim does. So she's using that for good. And I'm so grateful that that's able to do more than speak for more than even just our families and our kids.
Well, let's talk about the mental health side of things. How are you two doing? Are you doing okay?
We were well, I mean, we trauma bonded. I mean, I maybe this is too much information, but I sent Brandy a text last night because we were discussing some other things because we really are putting a lot of energy into these legislation changes. It's not just about stalking, there's a lot. And I texted her and I was like, because right now our children are still dating. They'll have been dating a year in May. And I was like, hey, so if the kids ever decide to part ways, we can still be friends, right? Because we've just been through so much and God bless my husband, but he's like, do we have to keep talking about this? And I am like, I am a woman. And yes, I have to say this 500 times in 8 different ways in order for me to process this. So, what a blessing it's been. Again, like God knew what he was doing. I wasn't in this alone. We had Brandy's family. She knows what it feels like to not know what the danger is for your child. And also, I do want to emphasize again, we were given resources right away for our kids, and they have been receiving mental health support all along the way, not just this week. Like, remember, this is a year and a half
Right.
for our family. Everyone's finding out about it now, but this has been a year and a half. So speaking for myself, like I need to get done with this and then definitely going back to therapy.
Oh, yeah.
Just being real. Like I've got to get out of survival mode, but I'm going to need to be doing some processing. Thankfully for me, my writing, my blogging, and this is a way for me to process and empower myself and kind of helps me.
Yeah, I just echo everything that she said. Not that I tell everybody to go get a trauma bestie, but that did help. However, it can feel so isolating. So if you can find somebody that you can trust, because you can't talk about it. And sometimes, unfortunately, this is a big frustration. Can't control it. The victims aren't always believed. Abusers in any way, shape, or form are really good at convincing other people that they're good, kind people, and that person's probably crazy. So, finding someone in any way, shape, or form, even if it's not your friends or family, that's what victims advocates can be. Find somebody you can process with.
Let's chat about what we can do to help out as you continue the advocacy, trying to change some laws. What does this look like in the process? How many years out are we before we start seeing some real changes?
See, there's you showing you know more than I did because I'm like, let's change the laws. And they're like, next year. Um, so, and this again is where Brandy has been invaluable because she's a real estate agent. So she's kind of worked with legislation and lobbying before on that end. So right now, Brian Boner has stepped up to the plate and he and Art Washik, I always say his last name wrong. So I apologize if I pronounced it wrong. Art they are kind of spearheading this. They have had a multitude, like I said, the state has just stepped up and inundated their own legislators. So they've had a multitude of other people that have stepped up. We've received phone calls of people that are wanting to help. So the next step is on April 8th. Brandy and my daughter Jillian and I, maybe my husband, down and speaking at the management session. I think that's what it's called. Brandy is confirming with a nod. And I told you I'm learning as we go. And we'll be sharing our stories with them in the hopes that our stalking law changes. That's what we're focusing on now. There's a lot of stuff to change, but our stalking law changes can be put on the as an interim topic, and then it'll be voted on in February. And Brandy, do you want to tell them what exactly our changes are that we want to make to the stalking laws?
Um, you go for it. Yeah, you go for it.
Oh, I was hoping to put the pressure on you.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry. I mean, I can tell some, but I don't have them
Okay.
all with
So
me.
our goal right now, our main goal is to have it be where if an adult stalks a minor with an age difference of 3 years or more, that it is a felony with 10 years of jail time and up to 10 years of jail time and up to $10,000 in fines. There's also some cyber aspects to the harassment and stalking that we would like to add. And we're working with Laura Baker. She is with Cyber Wyoming, which they work with cybersecurity, a nonprofit. And so she's kind of helping on that end.
Kathy, why 3 years on that?
So that was something we looked at laws that are already established because, shocker, there's only 6 states and Wyoming's one of them that don't already have an adult stalking a minor as a felony. And the reason why they have that is so if it's an 18-year-old stalking a 17-year-old, it doesn't move it into a felony. It leaves a little bit more realistic room there. But if it's an 18-year-old stalking a 14-year-old, that would be a felony.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
That makes total sense. Okay,
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Kathy, I have a question for you. You've mentioned a few times about how, I mean, we're live on this show and you're talking about how you're just learning the process. And how has that been for both you and Brandy? Because Brandy, there are things I'm sure you're learning as well. How has just the things are you going to become an attorney after this? Because you know a lot
No.
already.
Brandy's like, no.
No one likes, I'm sorry, not very many people like attorneys as much as we need them in the world, and that's not for me.
Brandy, what are some of
Um,
the things you're learning through this process?
I am learning patience. No, just kidding, not really. Um, I'm learning that sometimes laws, like, okay, just recently, last year, there was a law that would help more in the grooming aspect and stuff like that. And there was a lot of support. However, at the end, it the reason that they didn't pass it mostly is because it just didn't mesh in with the Wyoming laws. So a lot of people expressed, even the legislature, they um, wanting to change these laws, but it's not right. And if they don't want to get it, then it's just going to be thrown out. So just because something does not get passed doesn't mean that they don't care. It just means that that wasn't right. We need to go back, and they're actually talking about working that into the interim session as well. And the other thing is just that Wyoming is actually really great for people who do want to know what's happening in the legislature. I grew up in Utah. Um, like it's just so nice to be able to. Last night, I went on to YouTube. I found what date they voted it down. I wanted to hear what people were saying. I went onto their YouTube. I scrolled through the transcripts. I found just right where they were talking about it, discussing it. That's amazing.
So the technicalities, right? As Brandy said, there's people that want these laws to pass, but there's just some kind of legal technicality or phrasing that stops it. And so you can't give up, right? Then you need to present it again, make those tweaks, find out why they didn't like it. For me, there's I felt so stupid like this whole entire court process. I did. Like that is how I felt. I'm not saying I am stupid.
Right.
I have a college degree. I run my own business. Like I do things. I was so overwhelmed. I didn't understand the difference between civil law. I didn't understand that the protections order is over here, civil law, the bond over order is over here. Like there's just what's the difference between no contest guilty and guilty? What's the difference between a plea trial and a sentencing hearing? All these things. I literally like again making fun of myself, but this is also true. I started watching Ally McBeal because I'm like, okay, maybe I can start picking up on like just some of this. So I'm not so I was so and like I'm gonna be 43 tomorrow. Okay. Like I am not a 22-year-old. Again, I'm college educated. I am a career person. I was so intimidated and overwhelmed and the paperwork and like it breaks my heart to think of people that don't have the education that Brandy and I have trying to navigate this process. And it just really emphasized again how important those victim advocates are. Like, even writing your victim impact statement for me, no big deal. I'm a writer. Like, that is what I do for my job. But there's actually, which it's sad that they have it, but amazing. The victim advocate told us there's a chat that is specifically made to help people write their victim impact statements. So you go to this, I think it's Amy Speaks is what it's called. So if you're a
Amy
victim,
says,
thank you, Amy says, thanks, Brandy. If you're,
AIMEE.
thank you. So if you are a victim, you go in and you say, this is what happened to me, make my victim impact statement, and it does it for you. That's huge.
Yeah, that's incredible. And also just giving that information that we have victim advocates here. If you're watching this and you're going through something, and Brandy, I want to bring this up. I really don't want to, bring the kids up too much just because I feel like they've been brought up enough. But
They're okay.
you mentioned earlier that your kid wasn't looked at as a victim, but the victim advocates probably told you he is.
Absolutely. Well, that was just hearing and knowing because I knew he was, but hearing somebody else besides obviously the Holmans that was like, absolutely. And even if they don't ever charge for it, here's what we can do that totally falls into this protection order. Sometimes people aren't legally a victim, but they're absolutely a victim, um, and there are definitely things that they can do about it. So yeah, it was huge having that. We were so I'm not entirely sure. They don't let us in. I think part of it was that the perpetrator, I call her, she she said in an interview we heard that she's in the police interview, she said that she basically didn't like Jillian. She's like, yeah, I just couldn't, but I didn't have a problem with Preston. And
Mhm.
I'm like, yeah.
That's
And
part of the
then
problem is you liked him too much. I'm sorry.
yeah,
I should not have
yeah,
said that, but
like
like that was part of the problem.
Yep.
you
Hmm.
can stalk someone because you hate them, and you can stalk and harass someone because you're obsessed with them. It is that. And my son was not when we did the interview. As I looked at that, and he wasn't like on the outside. He was a way. He's not showing you his emotion. He's not,
Right.
and I was the mama bear being like, oh my gosh, she did this and that, and so he's like, hey mom, you got it. And I think that played a huge role into it.
And it
So
was a
that,
woman.
and it
Marcy
was a
Smith
woman.
is a female stalker. So many people are still not able to wrap their head around her being a threat. If that were as Brandy's husband Ryan put so eloquently, you can find all of our victim statements at praywifeandheels.com. But he said, if I, as a 45-year-old man, had asked a young woman for a picture in her underwear, I would have been in jail 5 minutes later. And he is right. And that's a whole nother, like, there's so many layers to this, right?
Yep. There really are a lot of layers. And I think that you hit the nail on the head, Kathy and Brandy, with the victim advocacy and just having the information confirmed. I mean, that's the biggest part of this is you've been dealing with this for a long time and so long too. I mean, Kathy, you're a public person. Nobody knew you were going through this for the longest time.
No. I like to say for someone who says so much, I know how to say very little. Like we couldn't, right? For a
Right.
year, we didn't know who to trust. Let's just talk about that. I isolated myself from almost everyone in Glen Rock
Small
because
town.
I didn't know who to trust. I had no idea who to trust. And the investigators told us, you cannot say anything. This person has to think they're getting away with it. They cannot, I mean, our kids, I don't know about Preston, but Jillian would be crying the night before. And then we'd have to be like, have a good day. Don't let them see you sweat. Don't let them see they're getting to you, kiddo. And in retrospect, of course, I've had people message me and be like, we knew something was wrong with Jillian's playing the way that she had been the year before. Her coaches were like, we wish you could have told us. We couldn't figure out if we were doing something wrong or what, but we couldn't, like, for the kids' safety and for the safety in the investigation, we couldn't. And then when they found out it was Marcy Smith, when she confessed, when they had the video footage, all the things, we still had to remain quiet because the lawyers asked us to, because we couldn't be accused of tainting the jury if she wanted to maintain that not guilty plea. And then Brandy, you brought it up last night, what happened at the school board meeting, because I was running for school board during this,
Oh.
about the video footage you wish.
Yeah. So also like just real quick, Kathy mentioned the isolation and then not knowing who to trust. That is so real. So real. That's a whole nother podcast, but it was huge. And I was new to the community, and anyways, that was probably the biggest, not knowing who to trust. But yes, so during this whole thing, and I didn't know that it was Marcy who was the stalker harasser. However, she was also being, talking to my son as herself, and she kept saying like, marry my daughter, just really creepy things. So our kids had blocked her on social media, and then you can read it all. It's a big thing. But anyways, and then she freaked out and it was this whole big thing. However, then her husband began to run for school board, and that I can't tell anybody, don't, but like what? How can we have anyways, it wasn't her. It was just so overwhelming. But at the school board meeting, like the meeting where they did um what do they
Town
call it?
hall,
A
the
town
town hall.
hall.
Yeah.
Yep. He was asked about mental health in our community and in our schools and what can we do more about it. And I was sitting there. Kathy was also running for school board, but we can't say anything. Um, and we were sitting there, and he says, number one, he didn't think it was much of a problem in our school, and number two, mental health starts at home, and that's the responsibility of the parents. And I mean,
So we're sitting there knowing his wife, like the police had already caught her. We had the video. We still had to be quiet, knowing that his wife had spent a year tormenting our children. And I do not think that he
threatening
was
suicide.
involved Yeah, yeah, I don't think he was involved. I just wanna make that very clear. I think Marcy Smith is the only one that is responsible for Marcy Smith's actions. But that being said, she spent a year and a half running down Brandy's family's name and Brandy's character and my character and the character of my daughter. So knowing the full story and having him stand up, and he thought he was taking a dig at me because I had been accused of sending all the text messages and harassing everyone. And so to hear him say that, like, it's just one of those scenes. The person sitting next to me in retrospect said he felt my whole entire vibe change when Ryan stood up and said that, and that haunted me. That moment still like infuriates me because I was so powerless.
Right.
And I think that was the point of that story, is just the isolation. No one knew. We knew the truth and we had to keep our mouths shut, and just the powerlessness of not being able to speak up and defend my child or myself or my character. And how often in life can you say I actually did nothing wrong? Like seriously, how often in life can you literally say I did nothing wrong? We did nothing to deserve this. And this is one of those cases. Those kids did nothing to deserve this.
I imagine the process that they had to go through internally for themselves was difficult and tough. And we're talking about 15-year-old kids. Kathy, Brandy,
They're babies.
let's think back to when we were 15. You know, I mean, come on, folks. We've got to do better. And that's why we have Kathy and Brandy fighting for the victim advocacy. Do either of you see yourselves as victim advocates here on out for these situations, like in a business setting, or maybe your name's going to be on a list for people to call?
I think that's what Brandy and I have done now. Like now, my social media space, my blog space, the Prairie Wife space, the spheres, you want to call it, has always been a safe place for people to share. I'm always open about things that happen in my life. That's what I do there. I've talked about my struggles with depression. I've talked about my 3 miscarriages, my preventive mastectomy, right? So people already now are flocking to it and knowing it's a safe place. And so I think that Brandy and I plan to continue to do so. We have tons of questions that people are asking us to create more content about. Like, I think Brandy and I literally sat down yesterday after we did one about the justice system and made a list. And Brandy, I think one of the things we're going to do next is like tech and keeping your kids safe, because we did everything right as far as the tech ends go. We had
Sure.
all the checkpoints. We had private social media accounts for our kids. We blocked the number, and face of this, I think maybe Brandy, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be my career or anything, but for I've always, been, since I've had family and friends that were domestic violence survivors, but having been through it, and just I will always advocate for it. I will always help with fundraisers. The victims coordinator at the prosecutor's office has already sent a couple people to us. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm more than willing. So absolutely, I will probably always talk about it and help in any way, shape, or form,
Yeah.
even if it's not my career. Yeah, it's a huge part.
This has changed your guys' life forever.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I can tell you personally that especially the last 6 months and the ups and downs and the emotions of the justice system, what got me through this was knowing that we could not save our children, but we sure as heck are going to try and make sure no other families feel the way that we feel.
I thought one of the biggest things from 2 things I have here, but one of the parts of the story that, I was reading the first story from Cowboy State Daily, and Kathy and Brandy, my eyes were like saucers. I felt like I was watching or reading this true crime book or story that I saw on Netflix or Hulu. It was just like that. It was crazy. But the one thing that stuck out to me is when your daughter was on a trip at a hotel, and I am so creeped out. Like if I'm home alone or any of situation like that, I don't even know what I would have done. I thought she just handled that with grit and grace, but I just can't believe that she was being made to feel like somebody was watching her and she had
Yeah.
no idea who.
Yeah. And she's watching, right? Because Marcy disguised herself and made it seem like she was a male. And so the irony of all this is that Marcy was actually the chaperone on that trip the advisor and the person meant to be keeping them safe when really she's the biggest threat my daughter's ever faced in her life. And again, I just want to emphasize people do not see women as predators and as a danger, but like Marcy Smith outweighs my daughter by, I don't know, 80 pounds. It doesn't matter that my daughter's a wrestler. It doesn't matter that she has three brothers and is tough. There is nothing she could do to defend herself. And people keep on saying, well, you guys are still in danger. We know. And that is a whole nother thing about protection orders is it's a piece of paper. That's
Yes.
it.
Yep.
If this person decides not to follow a protection order, and again in my feed on Prairie Wife, there's people sharing those stories. Well, I had a protection order too, but it didn't do me any good because the truth is they have to follow the law of the protection order. And is someone who has one in the first place really of that mindset?
Wow. Yeah, probably not. And that just brings me back to all those true crime stories. Just freaks me out so much, just because you're right. I mean, I would be amping up security. I would be,
Yeah, we have taken a lot of steps. The police have been amazing right away from the beginning, giving us recommendations. And I'm going to be honest here. That's part of the reason why I am being so public is to keep my family and our community safe.
good. As you should. And Brandy, I'm sure you appreciate that too. And I'm sure even though you mentioned, your son's tough too, you've got to have some fear as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's 6'5", but he still has experienced fear when we found out that it was her. And then we were waiting for that protection order. I didn't know this, but I was sitting outside in the hot with my son, with my husband, trying to vent so he's not hearing like, because we got to be moms, but then you got to be different. Anyway, so I was outside. It was late at night. He went to get something out of his truck and he didn't know, and he heard a woman's voice and he was terrified because somebody who is like this, they don't obviously follow boundaries. They don't. He's like, I didn't know what she was going to do. He was terrified. And the other thing you talk about, like true crime, we always think that that happens somewhere else, and unfortunately, it does happen in small towns. Does that mean I think you should be terrified? No, but we do need to talk about it, and we do need to be aware that it does happen and prepare in case it does.
Amen. You said it so well there, Brandy. Well, ladies, I really appreciate you taking the time. I know this has been such a intense moment in your lives and for your families. If there's anything more we can do, folks, if you're listening, write your letters to legislation to your representatives
Yeah.
and make your voice heard. I assume Kathy and Brandy, that might be the best thing we can do right now.
I missed that. Sorry,
Oh,
it cut out for a second here. So can you ask that again?
yeah, no problem, Kathy.
Sorry.
Is the best way for us to help to send letters to the legislation representatives right now in this
Yeah,
time?
so there's three things that you can do right now before we have this April 8th meeting. Find out who your local legislator is. You just Google it. Like Brandy said, Wyoming is amazing with giving you access. Just send them an email. Say you support harsher, stricter laws for stalking and for grooming. And then again, this is going to be coming up again in January when it's time to vote. So we really need you to help right now. And then there's going to be another big push again in January. So please don't lose sight of this and the emotions that you have now. And remember this when we bring it up again. The third thing that you can do is you can educate other people based on what you've learned. You now know what a victim advocate is someone in your life is struggling. If you're struggling, please be like, hey, I heard this thing, victim advocate, Google it. And please continue to share our story because that's how we're going to educate people. That's how we're going to inspire others to know that they're not alone and maybe help ease some of that isolation and fear for other people that have had this same experience. And they can find everything at prairiewifeandheels.com. As Brandy mentioned, timelines, victim impacts, and then of course on social media, Brandy and I are going to be there doing what we can. We do have 8 children between the two of us and jobs. And oh yeah, sometimes we like to sleep. But we are definitely there as a resource and just trying to do what we can. And just please don't forget this was one person. This is not the whole town. And there have been dozens of people throughout this that have stepped up that have done the best they can to do the right thing and have offered us support. Like, don't let this make you become bitter and jaded. Wyoming is still where I want to raise my family.
Well, Brandy, Kathy, it's been great having you on the show. Kathy Holman, Brandy Sorensen. Brandy, I'm glad I don't have waterproof mascara. It was about to be burning my eyes there for a second, ladies. So I just feel for both you, your family, your kids as well. But I'm really looking forward to some positive changes coming from this.
Yes.
So hopefully Cowboy State Daily reaches back out to you too, and we get an update, and appreciate both of you being on, and have a great day.
Thank you for your
Thank
help and
you.
support.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All right. Wow. I almost had a doozy ball in there for just a second. I'm Shireen filling in for Jake on the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show. It was phenomenal to have Kathy and Brandy on. I hope I get a chance to talk to them again. They're just inspiring. I'm Shireen filling in for Jake, Cowboy State Daily Morning Show.
Cowboy State Daily is all about Wyoming. Daily features include our popular sunrise photo of the day, our daily Darwin, Same Guys Dancing, and more. You'll enjoy our regular Wyoming life features, daily video newscasts and podcasts, and frequent opinion pieces from a carefully curated collection of the state's finest columnists. All of this in addition to the core mission, providing statewide news coverage in a clear, plain manner with up-to-the-minute breaking news when and where it happens. Cowboy State Daily's collective of reporters, photographers, videographers, and editors are dedicated to quality, unbiased daily journalism here in Wyoming. Find out why Cowboy State Daily is considered Wyoming's largest and most experienced newsroom. All it takes is one visit, cowboystatedaily.com. This is the Cowboy State Daily Radio Network.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye, Dad.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Have fun. Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again?
Alex is just...
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff, like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
In 2023, arm pump was holding me back. After a successful treatment at the McGinley Clinic in Wyoming, I can now focus on track instead of pain. The McGinley Clinic offers innovative, minimally invasive treatments for most sports injuries, including arm pumps. They got me back to peak performance and back on the podium. Go check out McGinley Clinic today.
All right, back in action. I'm Shireen filling in for Jake on the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show. Glad to be here on what is considered the warmest day of the year here in Wyoming. A lot of folks had a warm day yesterday, but it's going to be another beautiful day. All right, we have Dean Brittany Yates on. Brittany, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Your morning going well?
Yes, it's going well, thanks. How about you?
Me too. Yeah, it's beautiful. The sun's shining. I'm hitting the road. Yeah, one of those days you can't beat the drive.
No, it's been a beautiful week here, so we're lucky.
Where are you calling us from?
I'm in Riverton
Oh,
from
awesome.
Wyoming College main campus.
Cool. All
So
right.
we've been really fortunate to have sunshine this week and enjoying it. Let's
Well,
hope it stays.
I asked that because Central Wyoming College has so many great campuses, so I wasn't sure where you were calling us from. I know they have the Jackson and Lander, the Alpine Science Institute.
Yes. And we have a Thermopolis outreach branch now.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Du Bois. Yeah, we're kind of all over.
I love it. No longer, I mean, I like that it stays central, but it's awesome that your footprint is growing. I'm always amazed. I did a podcast with some folks at CWC recently, and the list of things and the list of programs, I'm like, are you sure you're not a 4-year college?
Well, technically we are. We are a community college that offers some 4-year degrees in the Bachelor of Applied Science. So it is definitely fun to be a part of it in this time where we are seeing a lot of growth and a lot of opportunity to expand our reach and impact, because ultimately that's what we hope to do.
Well, we're talking about a way you can get more information from Central Wyoming College and how they are kind of expanding their outreach, or some of your great conferences and classes and seminars you guys have. So, Brittany, let's talk about Central Wyoming Innovation and Entrepreneurship Conference that's coming up on April 10th.
Yes, thank you. We are so excited. As many of our statewide folks may know, there is an initiative at the state level from the governor's office with the Wyoming Innovation Partnership. This has afforded us the opportunity to be able to develop and create this conference so that we can bring together a lot of the people and folks that are working in the space of entrepreneurship, working in the space of economic development. What we know is that everyone's doing it all throughout the state, but we need to be able to bring those resources together and to connect and collaborate and see how we can do it more effectively and rely on one another to help with all of the initiatives happening. So we're very excited to be hosting this.
And I really love the concert aspect of it because, there's some hard hitting information in innovation and entrepreneurship, some really great skills to learn, some great information. Then you guys have added a fun acts aspect. And one of my favorite artists from Wyoming, Chancey Williams, is going to have a show.
I know. We are so excited to have him. Obviously, we really want to. He is going to be performing on Thursday night, and those concert tickets with the conference or separately. So just a little plug there if anyone's interested in, just parts and pieces or the concert in particular, they are able to buy just concert tickets. And he's doing some amazing things in the music industry right now.
Yeah, he was invited to Cheyenne Frontier Days this year. So I told him when I chatted with him, I was like, people better come see you April 10th because I don't know when the next time we're going to be able to afford to have you back.
I know. I think we kind of were really lucky to get in right before all of the Cheyenne Frontier Days stuff.
Mhm.
So it's going to be a fairly small, intimate setting in our art center. So it'll be a great show. We're really excited about that.
The acoustics are phenomenal in that theater area. Is there somebody that was involved with The Apprentice that might be at the conference?
Yes, and so for those who haven't watched The Apprentice, I saw that it is back on Amazon Prime
Yeah.
streaming, and the first season was won by Bill Rancic. He is an entrepreneur, and he will be here to speak on just a lot of different things in terms of his journey through entrepreneurship, some of the projects, a lot of the ways that he's learn to grow and thrive, but also some of the failures so that others can learn from it too. I got to visit with him earlier this week. We were hoping to have him on today with us, but we had some scheduling conflicts. He is really excited because he's never been to Wyoming. He said there's only 4 states he hasn't been to. Wyoming is one of them. And so we are happy to provide him the opportunity to join us in our great state.
Well, you give him the old Wyoming welcome,
We will. He was asking about Ubers. I said, no, we've
No.
got better. We've got, local folks who will drive you wherever you want to go.
Yeah, we have the Gator Cab or something like that, some taxi
Yeah.
service in town. That's how a small town we are. Yeah, no Ubers or Lyfts here. We do have one DoorDash driver, though, I think.
Oh, that's impressive. I don't do DoorDash. But yeah, I think I'm definitely Wyoming. So,
Well, I hope the
but
wind's
he's
blowing extra
excited.
hard for him when he comes and
Yeah, he's very down to earth. He's got a great story. He's been involved in a lot of different businesses, and he knows what it takes to really grow and develop, especially in times of uncertainty and chaos. And I think that if nothing is constant but chaos, right?
There you go. Yeah, he looks like a model. He's a good-looking guy.
Yeah, he's not bad.
Oh, you have a
I
couple
don't disagree.
Yeah, you have a couple other folks. I recognize Tabitha Coffee. I recognize her face, so I must have seen her on TV somewhere.
She was on Bravo for several years and on a show called Tabitha's Salon Takeover. So we are bringing her to speak sort of in the space of career technical education. She's been involved in the beauty industry. As you may know, we have a cosmetology program that's really an exciting opportunity for folks to come in and walk away with a hands-on skill that they can work right away, plug and play, right? So a lot of the programs we offer are in that space of career technical education. And I think they're vital to our economy. We can't survive without the trades. We can't
Mhm.
grow. And so Tabitha is coming in. She was on Bravo. She's very dynamic and fun. And she's also done a lot of work in just leadership and business development. So I think she'll be really enjoyable to listen to. It's completely different story, but something that can resonate with a lot of people.
And then you have Mike Wandler, and he's got more of a Wyoming connection.
Yeah, he is, for those who don't know him, he's actually the president of L&H Industries. It's a Wyoming, and they have their hands in a lot of different things. He's also the founder and leader of Wyoming's Innovative Entrepreneurs. So he is a Wyoming guy, and I think his story is just incredible. And what's surprising to me is, truthfully, before we started this, I didn't know much of Mike and who he was, but his impact is big, and I think he's one of those folks that can connect with people on just really going hard and making it work.
Well, I'm looking forward to checking out the conference, Central Wyoming Innovation and Entrepreneurship Conference. Now, if you don't live in Central Wyoming, you might want to make a trip over here, find some time and make the trip because their schedule of events is very long. They have travel and lodging information, and you can find more cwc.edu/CWIE, which is the Central Wyoming Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and it takes you to everything you need. I love your guys' website, Brittany. You guys do a great job. Is there anything we missed on the conference? I know there's a long schedule of events.
There are a lot of breakout sessions. We have a lot of different statewide organizations and agencies that are helping with this. A lot of our community college partners, the University of Wyoming. So I really just want to encourage anyone who's interested in, either being a part of a business, starting a business, maybe just finding ways they can help with economic development in their communities, or just listening to some really amazing keynote speakers and an awesome concert. There is going to be something for everyone. Education, those that are students, employees, owners, entrepreneurs. We'd love to have you all.
I love that you got Dan Starks on the list for the National Museum of Military Vehicles. Dan is a celebrity, first off, and
Yes.
he's amazing. So he'll be on Thursday, starting about 2:45. You also got Kevin Kershiznik, one of the hardest names to say, but Kevin is one of my favorite people, and he'll be talking about economic development, and no better person than Kevin to do that.
Exactly. Yes. Dan Starks will be a part of that same panel that Kevin's on. They're doing sort of a Q&A, and there's going to be a lot of opportunity to ask some of our statewide leaders the questions that you have. And I don't know, we didn't really mention it yet, but we also have Governor Mark Gordon joining us on Friday. Yeah, so he'll be opening up on Friday morning for the conference, with it being a WHIP initiative. I think he's definitely really excited about the opportunity to have a greater impact statewide.
Well, it's been great chatting with you, Dean Brittany Yates, and getting to know you a little bit more. Shout out to Jennifer Marshall. She does a fantastic job on marketing for CWC. And yeah, hopefully we'll get a chat again. I'm just filling in for Jake on the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show, but I'm looking forward to the conference, but I live here, so it'll be great to stop by.
Yes, well, we're excited to have you. So if anyone's interested in tickets, please reach out. We've got some discount codes if they need them.
Perfect. All right. Well, we'll chat soon. Dean Brittany Yates, CWC, talking about that Innovation and Entrepreneurship Conference, April 10th and 11th, cwc.edu for more info. Brittany, we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right. Again, that's the cwc.edu/CWIE for more information on that conference. They do have a lot of really cool stuff. Like I said, Dan Stark's National Museum of Military Vehicles will be there. And then we have that opening session with Governor Mark Gordon, 8:30 until 10:15 on Friday, April 11th. There's a mosquito flying. One nice day and there's mosquitoes in my studio. One nice day outside and I have mosquitoes and bees. Oh boy. Well, we need the bees though. All right. I'm Shireen filling in for Jake on the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show. We'll be back in just a moment.
It's time to take a look at what's happening around Wyoming for Thursday, March 27th. From the Cowboy State Daily Newsroom, I'm Wendy Core. Former Wyoming Game and Fish Department Chief Brian Nesvik was in front of a U.S. Senate committee Wednesday to be grilled on why he should lead the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Nesvik told the committee that his 30-year career with the Wyoming Game and Fish Department, ascending to director before his retirement last year, has given him the experience to balance state and federal environmental laws as well as competing stakeholder interests at local levels. Cowboy State Daily's Sean Berry reports that Nesvik's next challenge will be navigating those dynamics from the federal side.
He certainly knows federal laws. Environmental laws can get very complicated and tricky. He knows all of this stuff, but he's going to have to learn about parts of the country, I think, specific regions of this country on the coast, for example, Texas. There's so much variety in terms of the biological diversity in this country. So he has a steep learning curve to take charge of this whole agency.
Nesvik's confirmation to the top Fish and Wildlife post is not in doubt, but first, the Environment and Public Works Committee will vote to send his nomination to the full Republican-controlled Senate. Well, after her boyfriend forced her to get into his minivan, a Fremont County woman jumped out of the moving vehicle and rolled into a ditch before being forced back into the vehicle and having to jump from it a second time. That's what court documents allege in the case against 70-year-old Jeffrey King, who was charged Monday with 1 count of felonious restraint, another of reckless endangering, and a third of domestic battery. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports that 42-year-old Sarah Evans was the alleged victim.
According to her interview at the time, he was beating her head and face and picking up tools and hitting her. And she jumped out of the moving van. And then she told the deputy, then he got out and started beating me outside. I got back in the van and then I had to jump from it another time, at which point another man said he came and picked her up.
The Fremont County Attorney's Office filed the charges about 5 months after the alleged offense. Fremont County Attorney Patrick LeBrun confirmed that King is in custody and not on the run. Multiple large New York banks have recently announced plans for stable tokens for U.S. dollars to travel to and from the digital world, riding on the heels of a newly installed and crypto-friendly Trump administration. But Cowboy State Daily's Renee Jean reports that Wyoming-based Custodia Bank has beaten them all to the punch.
What they were trying to do is provide like an on-off ramp for money to go to and from a bank account onto like a cryptocurrency platform. So far, nobody has done that. It's been a regulatory obstacle course for Custodia Bank, which has been trying to do it since 2020. They partnered with a bank in Texas, which provided the master account. That's the account that you need with the Federal Reserve in order to access their services. It's a bank account for banks, basically. And so working with Vantage in Texas, they were able to do 8 transactions demonstrating this technology, taking money on and off the Ethereum blockchain.
Custodia Bank CEO Caitlin Long told Cowboy State Daily that she lamented that it was a Texas community bank and not a Wyoming community bank that approached them to do this first, but pointed out that this has been part of Custodia's business plan since 2020. I'll be back with more news right after this.
Are you fabulous at 55? Are you ready to use your valuable time and talent to give back? Join Serve Wyoming through the AmeriCorps Seniors Retired and Senior Volunteer Program, or RSVP and make a positive impact on your community. With a lifetime of skills and experiences, you're exactly what your community needs. Whether you're itching to lend a hand or your organization could use some extra support, we've got you covered. Call Sarah Roberts at Serve Wyoming at 307-234-3428 or RSVP at servewyoming.org.
Texas researchers have concluded that Yellowstone's bison herds, which fluctuate between 4,000 and 6,000 animals, have merged into a single breeding population. That doesn't mean the Yellowstone bison are in imminent danger of becoming inbred, but Cowboy State Daily's Mark Hines reports that the herd's genetics could eventually suffer if current trends continue.
They've long been thought of as two separate herds, like the Northern Park herd and the Central Park herd. This research paper argues that, especially in terms of genetic exchange and breeding, it's essentially just one big herd. And that has some interesting implications, not only in the management and conservation of the bison, but also raising the concern of genetic diversity.
Bison conservation advocates worry that current trends in management practices, which include hunting and rounding up and slaughtering bison as they leave the park, could eventually ruin the Yellowstone bison's genetics. And that's today's news. Get your free digital subscription to Wyoming's only statewide newspaper by hitting the daily newsletter button on cowboystatedaily.com. I'm Wendy Core for Cowboy State Daily.
Hi, I'm Susan Lucci. I never thought about heart disease until I had my own heart event. I had heard many times that heart disease is the #1 killer. It went in one ear and out the other, frankly. I never had a health issue, but suddenly I had that pressure, that elephant pressing on my chest. By the time I got to the ER, the doctor decided to give me a CAT scan. I had a 90% blockage in my main artery and a 75% blockage in the adjacent artery. I received 2 stents in my arteries. Stents developed through research funded by the American Heart Association. That's why I'm in front of you today. I'm so grateful to the American Heart Association. Their research helped save my life. Put yourself on your to-do list. It could be the most important thing you ever do. Learn more about the American Heart Association's life-saving work at helpheart.org.
It's a beautiful morning in Wyoming. I'm Shireen Herrera filling in for Jake on the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show. Thanks to all the folks that I've had on. NRA Nate, friends of the NRA, Nate Brown. If you'd like to listen to that, you can rewind or check back about an hour and a half, and you'll find Nate Brown with some great information on the Friends of the NRA as well as volunteerism. We also had a really powerful interview with Kathy Holman and Brandy Sorensen. They are the parents of those 2 teens that were impersonated, stalked, cyberbullying, and some of the information that's come out from that, as well as the sentencing. And that conversation was really powerful. So I urge you, if you want to go back, you can listen to that. About an hour back from here is when we start that conversation. And again, just powerful. There was a couple moments that I had to really, hold back some tears. Personally. So again, just a fantastic guest this morning. I've really enjoyed filling in for Jake. I'll be back next week as well. I'm taking off today. I'm hitting I-80 while I can on a nice day and heading down to see the LA Kings and the Avs battle each other out. I think they're both in the hunt for the playoffs. And then I have a doctor's appointment. That's what happens when you live in rural Wyoming. We've got to travel to be able to get appointments for pretty much everything, it seems like, anymore. So that's what I'm doing. I'll be back on Monday morning in full and looking forward. I have some really great guests planned next week too. We'll be talking about tourism, the housing crisis, hopefully in the state and in certain areas, and some more great guests that will be joining next week on the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show. I know that I have an author that'll be coming up that has to do with travel, so I think that's always an interesting listen, especially if you are thinking about some spring or summer trips, especially when the kids might get out of school or things might slow up for you. You're starting to think, how can we make the most of the nicer weather or make some trips, not just traveling to Florida or other places, but just places right here in Wyoming, in the northwest part of the country, in the Rockies. There's just so many places to explore. And I think often what happens is we end up living in a place and not exploring it. Guilty, party of one right here. I lived outside of Glacier National Park for many, many years. I've only made it a couple times up into the park because it was a tourist trap and so many people. Now it's hard to even get up there. My advice, though, if you do ever want to see Glacier National Park on a slower time, before they actually open the road up, you can just take your bike. Yeah, it's a lot of work. But when you go down, it's crazy. And I went down in the rain. It was like I could have fallen and had a bad accident. But if you ever want to see Glacier National Park on a more mellow time, it would be before they open the Going to the Sun Road. And before they open it, you can take your bike up and be able to see Glacier National Park in its beauty before it actually gets busy. Renee Jean, Cowboy State Daily, joining the show. Renee, how are you this morning?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
Good. You're so peachy. You're so cheery. I love that about you.
Oh, well, good.
You're like that person, that sunshine you need every morning.
Aw.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for that.
Yeah. Renee, how's your morning going?
It's going.
Right. What are you
I
working
need
on?
another cup of coffee.
Me too.
But it's going.
Me too. Me too. I have a half a cup still.
All right.
What are you working on today?
Well, I'm working on some features for the weekend. Got a cool one coming up about a guy whose hobby is flying in the sky with what's called a paramotor. Have you ever heard of a paramotor?
No, but are those like the paragliders?
They're like hang gliders, but they have motors on them.
No, thanks. No.
So, like, I feel like this is the precursor to George Jetson, right?
Right. There you go. Yeah. That's how we're going to travel in Wyoming. I mean, definitely it's a way to use the wind to your advantage.
Right? I don't know why we don't more of us do that. It's way more cost effective than a car.
Yeah. So are you going to go on a trip with him or what?
Well, I think it's like one person per paramotor.
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably a good idea. One person. Yeah.
And maybe there's not a lot of room for your stuff. It's 100-pound piece of equipment that you carry on your back.
That's crazy.
So, and you have to kind of run all out to take off.
And so when you research this story, are you going to see him in person and kind of just talk more about why he does this crazy stuff?
Oh no, I've already talked to him and I've already written that story.
Oh, cool.
But I guess I'm cleaning it up this morning, going through I like to write something and then kind of let it sit for a little bit.
Yeah.
And
That's a
think
good
about
idea.
it and make sure I've picked the right angle, especially when it's a feature. Because with features, things don't necessarily blow up or explode, or people don't get robbed and mugged necessarily. They're kind of a softer side of things. You got to really think about, are you picking the right angle?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Story.
Yeah.
So I like to give it some thought.
Good for you. I think that is kind of a lost cause sometimes in writing or journalism when it comes to news, because people are instant gratification. They want to know now, but you're right. You want to make sure you have the right angle, the information. And again, that's what makes you a great writer.
I want them to feel like they learned something when they read the story, and that it's memorable. If it doesn't have a good takeaway, it's not going to be memorable.
Right. Yeah.
So that's just kind of that's what I've learned in 30 plus years of working in this industry is, people will come back and they remember those stories that taught them something, or that had something memorable.
Yep.
They'll save them and, frame them and hang them on their wall.
They do. You see those a lot of the times, especially that guy who's the one featured. I bet you in his paragliding garage or whatever he has, he would definitely frame your story when it's out. Where's he located out of?
He lives in Burns.
Okay. Where's Burns again? Why am I drawing a blank?
It's near Cheyenne, I think.
Okay.
Southeast Wyoming.
That's a good place to have some paragliding there. There's some good spots. Well, I'm looking forward to that story, Renee.
Good.
Yeah. You have anything fun planned for yourself this weekend, or are you just workaholic?
I'm a workaholic. For sure.
Media people
Uh,
are.
yeah. But so talking about stories that we've already done, uh, one that Wyoming's Custodia Bank has, I think this is pretty significant. It's not getting a lot of attention, I think, but we have a Wyoming bank that has beaten out the big New York banks to creating an on ramp for digital currency. We've had Bitcoin for a long time, but people getting in the money back and forth seamlessly has been an issue. Part of it's regulatory. We haven't had the right regulatory framework. Wyoming did a lot of work to set up that very thing. And Custodia Bank has made good on that with a recent set of 8 transactions. What I think is remarkable about it is uh, how much less it costs. So normally a Fed wire transfer is $35 per transfer. It takes at least a day, sometimes 3 days. They did 8 of these transfers in 2 hours with this technology.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's kind of revolutionary and it's a sleeper. Look, like I said, not a lot of people paying attention to it, but uh it's bound to dramatically change the financial sector going forward.
Oh, for sure. I have a friend who builds those digital currency computers. I poo-pooed her for a long time, and I still don't get it.
Yeah,
I still am not going to buy one because I know nothing about it. But
right.
she's been on that for so long, and so I am interested that Wyoming is Wyoming-based Custodio Bank is the first to send and receive digital U.S. dollars. But again, it's just a reminder of Renee. People think Wyoming is the wild, wild west, but we do have things that are progressive here.
Well, and very cutting edge. I mean, this is really the top of the game here.
Right.
Uh, you had Trump announced a similar idea uh, just days after these transactions took place. A couple of New York banks announced a similar idea, but Custodia Bank here in little old Wyoming has already done it. And
Wow.
so I think that steals a little of their thunder.
Good. Yeah.
But and it's also a testament to all that work that Wyoming has done to create this digital assets. Wyoming just continues to take the lead in that area. And interesting too, if you look at it historically, like South Dakota was the first state to accept and set up kind of credit card financial institutions. That was revolutionary at one time. People couldn't imagine, but South Dakota embraced that. And today they have thousands of workers. Wyoming's making a similar gambit here. It'll be interesting to see if that pays off at some point in the future.
Well, I can't wait to read your follow-up story, Renee, when all that happens, because you're right. It's an interesting world that we live in. And if we don't keep an eye on some of these stories that you and the folks at Cowboy State Daily are writing, then we're kind of not in the know. I'm sending the story over to my friend who has all those computers she builds and stuff, and she has a digital
Yeah,
currency business in Colorado. And so I'm going to send it to her and say, ha ha.
great. Do that.
Yeah, I definitely will.
It's now. I'm not seeing a lot of other media pick up on it, but it is pretty noteworthy, I think.
Definitely. All right, Renee, it's been great chatting with you. I'll be back next week filling in for Jake, but it's just been a lot of fun. And yeah, I appreciate you joining me.
All right. We'll see you
See ya.
later.
Bye bye.
Bye.
All right, great to have Renee on the show, Cowboy State Daily Morning Show. I'm Shireen filling in for Jake and just glad to be here. A beautiful morning. Don Day said we might not be able to beat yesterday, but for where I'm at, I think today we might be a few degrees warmer than we were yesterday and pops of sunshine for sure. So, in a lot of areas of Wyoming, it'll be the warmest day of 2025 so far, even though yesterday was pretty warm. So I might have to go back and compare now that I'm saying that live on the show here. I might have to go compare temps from yesterday across the state temps from today, or I'll just ask Don Day, who will be actually probably doing that in his spare time anyways. I'm Shireen, filling in for Jake, Cowboy State Daily Morning Show.
Want to stay in touch with what's happening around Wyoming? I'm Wendy Core, host of the Cowboy State Daily video newscast. From Mountain View to Upton, from Jackson to Cheyenne, our reporters are out there finding and telling the stories that matter. Every day, I talk to the talented journalists who are covering the topics, issues, and people that are important to Wyomingites. And in our daily newscast, I bring you their stories. Tune in to Cowboy State Daily video news every morning, only on cowboystatedaily.com.
Wyoming
This is the Cowboy State Daily Radio Network.
Meet Norm. He lives with anxiety, but with the help of this latest innovation from Be Normal, he can be normal, just like everyone else. With the swipe of a finger, you can project happiness, confidence, machismo. Why settle for being real when you can be normal? The Normal Maker, new from Be Normal.
This item doesn't really work because there's no such thing as normal. We're all different. What we like, how our brains work. In fact, 1 in 5 of us live with mental illness. Don't filter who you are. Start by talking to someone you trust. And remember, there is no normal.
Nestled between Casper Mountain and the North Platte River, you'll find the heart of Wyoming. With a bustling downtown centered around our outdoor haven, Casper is for adventurers, freedom seekers, and rule breakers who find beauty off the beaten path. So if touchable history, a vibrant community, and uninterrupted outdoor recreation define your travel itinerary, allow us to welcome you to the one and only Casper, Wyoming. Plan your trip at visitcasper.com.
Welcome to Thursday, March 27th, 2025. This Day with a Podcast brought to you by ConverseCountyTourism.com. Feel the energy of Converse County. Explore Douglas's railroad heritage, Ayers Natural Bridge, and the Jackalope legend. Glen Rock boasts scenic trails, dinosaur history, and small town charm. Plan your visit at ConverseCountyTourism.com. Well, I don't know how yesterday could have been really any better for late March for the region with those blue skies. As you can see there, a beautiful setting, classic spring in the Rockies. A lot of white up high and a deep blue sky in the background. And we'll see that for the most part today, but we will see a little bit of moisture trickling in that will lead to some cloud buildup. Later today, that will lead to a little bit of isolated shower and thunderstorm activity in some areas late today and again on Friday. It's going to be spotty, but you're going to see some very spring-like looking clouds in many areas later this afternoon towards evening. The system, the big storm off the west coast, is going to push inland, a big piece of it. In fact, there are two pieces. This pattern change is coming in two segments. The first segment is an area of rain and thunderstorm activity that moves across the region late Friday afternoon and overnight Friday and the Saturday morning. That's going to be mostly rain on the plains due to all these recent warm temperatures. Then the second system comes in, draws in some Canadian air, and that's the system that may have a little bit more snow with it as we get an upslope pattern. Livestock interests, be prepared for a shift back to cooler, wet conditions this weekend. And as we mentioned yesterday, need to keep an eye on next week's weather. Two large Pacific waves are likely going to come through the central and western United States for the first week of April. Speaking of spring-like clouds, a little bit of that moisture getting into central and southern Colorado yesterday. Got a little bit of some virga there. So that moisture that's in the southern plains kind of creeping up a little bit yesterday and will do so more today. Now, speaking of spring, you can see the snow line coming out of the foothills and going up higher. There's still always opportunities, and there certainly will be in April for more heavy snow in the high country, and we'll see that in some areas this weekend. But lower elevations, the higher mountains still packed in with a lot of snow, but the lower foothills beginning to melt out. And yes, I see green. There's a little bit of green out there, patches of green, and hopefully after this weekend there'll be more patches of green. The satellite and surface maps show, again, a